assuming that you know how the pieces move, pawns can move 2 squares and 1 square, knight can move 2 and 1, bishop can move diagonally on the same square, same coloured square, that type of situation. Rooks can move horizontally, yeah, and attack and capture pieces horizontally, and the queen can move in all directions on the board, yeah, backwards and forwards, side to side, whichever way you want. The king moves 1 space either way, apart from castling, which can move 2 squares just to fulfill the castling process. It can only castle if it doesn't have anything blocking its way, and it's only a matter of if the king's passageway is blocked that the castling can't take place. If the passageway for the rook is blocked, then the castling can still take place, so long as it doesn't block the king's passageway. En passant, which is something that throws a few beginners off, is when you're in a position, say like this, and you have your pawn a bit advanced up the board. Now if our opponent wants to go 2 squares forward with their pawn, we can go en passant and capture the pawn. Okay, if they go 1 square, we have the option of capturing or pushing onto the, pushing upwards. But the key thing is en passant. I've seen many arguments online, especially where beginners have gone, "What was that? Was that some sort of trick? What's going on here?" Yeah. But if they go 2 squares and we have a pawn that has advanced up the board, we can capture behind the pawn. So in essence, if you have a pawn on the 5th rank, or if they have a pawn on the 4th rank, if they're black, yeah, and then they decide to go to the 5th rank with their pawn on their first move, then it's en passant. But be clear, if say they do a move like this and we haven't taken, and then we do another move, say like this, yeah, and then they make another move, just make a random move somewhere, they do a move like this, you can't then go, "Oh, I'm going to go en passant." Sorry, hold on, made a mistake there. If they then push the pawn past, you can't then claim en passant. Yeah, it has to be done if they've done the first move as their 2-move pawn move, then you can do it, but you can't do it after that pawn has been moved. Okay, so this is the seasonal Christmas tutorial for absolute beginners, and I'm going to take you through a example game before we go on to the actual games, just so we can get an understanding of where we're coming from. So say we open with our e4 pawn, attacking the center, and the opponent comes down. The idea being for the strategy is around attacking pieces and getting as many pieces off the board as you can. Not as quickly as possible, not as dirty as possible, but just to get pieces off the board if you can, which is of benefit to yourself. So we're attacking this pawn here, maybe they come and defend. So then we want to attack the pawn again with this pawn. It's not saying this is a standard approach that I'm expecting anybody to take, but the idea behind it is to be attacking pieces as best possible if you get the opportunity. So say they capture and we capture back, say they capture, queen captures, and then they develop their knight because they're now starting to attack. Always remember, this is what the opponent is also going to be doing to yourself. So develop the bishop now, attacking this weak pawn here. Ordinarily, maybe they open here. Castling is key. get your king to safety, whether it's a castling in normal stream of things, or if it's castling by hand or virtual castling, or you're putting your pieces around the king, placing it to a place where you believe it is safe, then just do it. Yeah, as simple as that. Develop the bishop now, ready for their own castling. We attack their knight, they castle, we develop our knight, supporting the pawn here. They attack our bishop, we maybe capture, they capture back, that type of scenario. And at this point here, we could attack the knight with the smaller piece. A smaller piece attacking a higher piece usually isn't that wrong. So we can capture here. We could capture the pawn back with the queen, or we could take the big guns off the board. Now that's a choice that you would have to make in your game. Are you comfortable capturing the pawn here, knowing that the queen is owning the file? Yes, we can put pressure with our rooks. So capturing the pawn here with the queen. Queen probably may want to move off of the line because it knows the rooks are going to attack it. Maybe they don't. The knight probably may come here to attack a higher piece, which is the queen. So the bishop probably takes because it's attacking the queen, higher piece. Maybe the knight takes, or maybe the queen takes. Maybe the knight takes back, then the rook takes. So that's a typical sort of type of thing that we're looking at in terms of attacking pieces and attacking squares and developing. So let's make it work for us. The strategy for beginning in chess. So blocking the pawn from advancing further down, and it's opened up the kingside pawn area. So as a beginner, what I would say is don't focus on trying to keep any type of tension. If they're giving you something, just take it. So we'll take the pawn here. Have a look at what attempt they're trying to make. So the pawn trying to push through the center, develop a piece, attacking a piece here. So the knight is attacking this pawn. So if you can develop a piece that's attacking a piece as a beginner, then you're understanding the rudiments of the game and what the pieces are there for. So don't think about keeping tension and being fancy and arty. I'm attacking this piece here with this bishop. You won't be able to attack all the time. You have to look at king safety as well. So in my eyes now, king safety is developing this bishop here to allow my king to go and castle. So we can go and castle now to keep the king safe. Key element to chess is keeping your king safe. If you can't castle, then castle by hand, keep it safe no matter how it works out. That's the whole idea, or else if you're not keeping your king safe, then you're getting checkmated and that's the game over with. So what we're looking at here, we've got one piece which is attacking a piece here. We've got another piece which is attacking a smaller piece. So it's an equal exchange here with the bishop, and a knight attacking a pawn. It's not for free. He's now doubly protecting this pawn. So we can now look to develop our own piece, or we could attack this pawn here. Now this pawn can drop down, so we do have that option. So initially I'm going to develop the knight. So I've developed my pieces, trying to look at squares where they potentially may have strength. So if he does push this pawn down, he does have two pieces, 3 pieces protecting that black square. As we mentioned, he's just going to drop, yeah, because he's got all these pieces protecting that square. If we captured this knight, the queen or the rook will take, or maybe even the pawn, because behind that knight is the queen. So in essence, we could take this knight off because he has to do something to basically deal with the threat of the bishop attacking the queen. Then we can take this pawn, maybe. Yeah, so then does he take with the pawn or does he take with the bishop? Likelihood is that he will take with the pawn. So his pawn then is going to be on our knight. So where does our knight go? Our knight would logically go here to attack a piece. So it could work that way. Could take now. because as we mentioned, the bishop has the knight pinned through to the queen, so there's an x-ray. So he only really has two pieces defending this pawn. So as we said, this pawn is probably going to take. Then our knight can come here to attack their bishop. I think their bishop will potentially go back. So we'll move the knight like we said. If they go back, then the pawn takes, doubling the pawns up in front of their king. So he's not probably going to be happy with that. Going here is not really good either, because the knight is the one that is protecting, so our bishop would be able to take. So he's almost inclined to either drop back here or drop back there, which they don't really want to do. Oh, now he's gone for a big attack. Now do you see this? When you see this type of movement done, when the queen takes, then the knight comes here, because now the knight has then put a check on the king. Yeah, but then our bishop can take the knight, but his queen can take our bishop. Yeah, and then our bishop can take his bishop, but his queen can take our knight. So who wins out in that? Yeah, we're going to give it a try. Let's go. So king takes the bishop, knight drops here, bishop takes. It's a move order thing, and I'm not saying I'm 100% proof on any of it. It's just when they give up a piece, sometimes it ends up being equal or they're a pawn down, something like that. So I'm hoping that it works out that way. So his queen then takes our bishop. So he'll probably take with the rook, but we could take with our knight. So his rook can still probably take, bishop takes, or he brings his queen to, he's trying to get his queen to face our king, you see. So if we have a look at the position, well, the pieces that we've got at the moment, we have 1, 2, 3 minor pieces, and the opponent has 1 minor piece left after that exchange. So like I say, sometimes it works for the opponents and sometimes it doesn't. It's a move order thing, so you have to be careful about sacrificing pieces. I'm not saying that this isn't going to work for the opponent, because they're still around our king area with a strong piece, which is the queen. And if you have an opponent who goes, well, a rook is a rook, I'm just going to exchange off, then you know they've reduced down and they might be in a better position on the board. But keeping it simple for ourselves as beginners for this festive season, capture pieces where you can. So he's developed the knight now attacking the bishop, so he's got 2 pieces now on this bishop. Yeah, so he's not going to take with the queen just yet, but he could do, because it's the queen that's protecting here. Our knight could go here, but the queen would take. We could support the bishop with a pawn. His pawn takes, our pawn takes again, and we're opening up space around our king area. Our knight could take this pawn here, but then his queen is just going to take the and then the rook takes our rook. Yeah, so those are the quizzical things of him trying to get this piece back. So we could bring our knight back here, adding a protective layer to the bishop, but it weakens this area because the knight was actually protecting this square. So the queen is probably going to come here to put a check on the king. So our king can move back, but then potentially the rook is looking to come eventually, maybe. That's a lot of moves, we'll see how that goes. But that's the key square for now. Queen moves here for a check, we move the king back, and we have to look and assess where we're going with that. Let's bring in the rook there first. Right, okay. So yeah, so he comes here, like I said, that's the key square. So we could move the king, but when we move the king, what happens? his queen moves here. Yeah, so condensing the whole area with his pieces, and then he can just basically attack and get a checkmate. Okay, so we could move the knight back, but as we said, the knight is probably going to take. Could push this pawn onto the knight and the queen to give them something to think about, but he can still go ahead with his rook check and he wins the tempo. And even then we come here, he's then still got this position. So what we do have is a bishop here moving to here, if that does happen. Okay, so we can move here. Yeah, if we move there, then they moved there, then we moved here, and his knight's looking to do something funky with a check on my king. The pawn can't take back because he's got a check with the queen. The knight can take. Yeah, let's do that. Let's see how it pans out. That's the pressure area. Yep, we do have the bishop being able to protect here. Okay, so time's running down on that side. So it's just about thinking about what, like we mentioned, yes, they've done a sacrifice and it's opened up a little bit of space around our king area, but it is a move order thing in terms of how they actually get the checkmate position on. And once you try and work that out as best possible, take that extra time to just think about how can they possibly get the checkmate and how can I then block that off. Because sometimes it's so easy to think, oh, I've got all these pieces off, and then you start charging up there thinking that you're going to get a checkmate, but then because they've got lesser pieces on the board, you're thinking they can't do anything. But case in point, this is how this person is going to get a checkmate on us, and we're trying to prevent that action. Could move his queen down, but we can still move the bishop here. I think that's a plus. Yes, he's moved the queen. So we move the bishop back now, strengthening a little bit our position. We do have a little tiny pawn that can touch here, but if his rook comes here, we're not going to do that. If his rook moves, the knight will probably go here because then we have a fork. So I think that might be it. And knight can grab this pawn, but that will be after, if the rook comes here feeling confident. He's wanting to do something with this knight. He's believing this knight is going to come in and cause some damage. It's on 51 seconds at the minute. So the knight has actually moved. So our knight can come here attacking his rook. Our queen can go and attack his queen. Our knight can take the pawn attacking the rook. Knight takes the pawn attacking the rook comes here, he's attacking both our knights. So attacking a higher piece is probably better, which is attacking the queen. I'm going to attack the queen to try and reduce down. Where can his queen go? Can go, but it'll get taken, so it can go up or can go here to escape, if they were going to escape. It's got a 2-on-1, have you noticed, with his rook, yeah, and his knight, so he does capture. So the bishop can take, or the knight can take. The knight would be on the rook, so it's forcing the rook to either take the pawn. So we're on 49 seconds at the moment. And he doesn't take, so his knight is on the bishop. Knight hasn't got a fork, so we'll take with a check on the king. And and then capture the knight with attack on the pawn. It's got 5 seconds left, so we're not doing too bad in terms of the capturing, and they've lost on time. So we'll have a look at the analysis on that to see how we were faring. Okay, like we said, this is the tutorial for beginners in chess, and I'm going to work through it nice and steadily. So the opponent opened, we blocked the pawn off like we said, keeping it nice and simple, and in our own strategy it's about taking pieces off the board appropriately. That'll be our first stage thing, just to practice what the pieces can actually do. So we've captured this pawn here. You don't have to capture it going forward as you develop, but let's just look at just taking pieces off the board initially. Also, we looked at blocking off pieces, you know, understanding that we're blocking pieces off, but also giving our other pieces space to actually maneuver. So this pawn here is basically blocking the advancement of this pawn, which helps us develop our other pieces such as the knight. So the knight now has come through and is attacking this pawn here that doesn't have any protection on it. And then we brought the bishop through, attacking a piece, x-raying through to a higher piece. We developed the bishop now because we said king safety is paramount in the game of chess. So no matter what you do on the board, if your king isn't safe, then you're going to lose the game and you're going to get checkmated. So we castled and we developed our knight. Yeah, as you can see, the evaluation bar, when you're looking back on your games, you'll have the fright of your life. You'll say, oh my god, I'm actually losing, I'm losing, is there a better way? Take it with a pinch of salt in terms of your own development as a beginner. Yeah, just use the basic strategy of placing your pieces in squares that you can potentially attack a piece or capture a piece, and you're not going to be worse off for capturing that piece. So as we mentioned, this the opponent was going to push through with this pawn, and we worked out that potentially grabbing the pawn is going to be in a better position for us. So they captured, and then we attached the bishop. Yeah, like we said, try and get your pieces attacking key squares as best possible. And then the opponent did this shocking move, and we talked it through and said, well, is this one of those where they actually lose out on tempo in move order depending on how you play it? We captured the bishop, and as the computer's showing, potentially they're probably better off moving the bishop out of the way, but they brought their knight into the game because then they've got 2 pieces under attack, so we can capture one. It's about move order, and now the computer's saying capture the bishop, yeah, which they do, but then we've captured another piece out of that exchange and we're still protected. Now, we did mention about the rook potentially taking the knight here. The computer initially just did that, but then it's now pushing the pawn down onto the bishop because it wants to get pieces back. So as you can see, the gauge bar now is really shining for us. So we've done it right as far as we're concerned, but our issue was understanding how can they get a checkmate on us from this position. And we talked through all the lovely positions that the opponent was going to go for. So we brought our knight back initially to protect the bishop, and they brought the rook down, and that's where we went, this is how they're going to get the checkmate. But after a long talk and a long discussion with ourselves, we realized that moving the bishop back onto h6 would help us block off that immediate threat. So we pushed through initially just to attack a higher piece with a lesser piece. So we've got a fork with the pawn, and then they came down with the queen. Same move the king here, but we decided to move with the bishop. We haven't lost anything on the evaluation side, so again, it's blocking off the potential threats and attacks that the opponent potentially can do to us. They move the knight, and we went for the exchange. Yeah, looking for those key exchanges, those key captures, and captured with the knight, putting pressure onto the rook. As I said, I think the rook probably should have taken, but they took with the knight, and then we had a check on the king, so they have to move. It's again winning that move order, so then we capture the knight, and that's when their time ran out. So basics for chess beginners: capture when you can, place your pieces on squares or places where you can potentially capture a piece or x-ray through to a higher piece. A smaller piece attacking a higher piece can't be wrong initially when you're learning how to play chess. So a pawn attacking a knight, a pawn attacking a bishop, a pawn attacking a rook or a queen, it can't be wrong. Get used to that. So long as that pawn then can't just be simply captured back and it is supported, then it's a good attack.
Put up the knight out. Could protect the pawn, just bring the knight out. See, he's developing. Let's go here and here. King safety. Develop the bishop. And he's moved this bishop back, so we've got plenty of time just to analyze what is actually happening here. Maybe let's just do a small move, looking for the pawn to attack the bishop here. Okay, let's attack. And he's gone hiding. Let's scud missile. Capture this centre pawn. It's knight's on there, bishop's here. Bishop can take this dolphin fin, but not just yet. Let's keep pushing the scud missile. Lazy man's chess. Yes, I'm being a lazy man, so he's blocked it off now. Let's just attack this pawn here. He's got a 2-on-1 with the bishop and the rook anyway, so he'll get the pawn back if he does capture. Does capture with the bishop, he's got the queen there, so we can't actually take with the rook. We can if we don't like our rook, so I'm actually going to take piece for a piece. Queen takes, knight takes, bishop got a bit of a discover check on the queen, so I'm just playing a bit of funky moves here now, doing the unexpected to try and gain the expected. If he doesn't, then knight takes the knight with a check on the king, opens up the king area a bit. Something to think about. Queen can just take the pawn. He's not taking the pawn. Oh, well, so he's got a 2-on-1 on the knight, so we may as well just take the knight. Yeah, okay, so that looks fine to us. Let's just take this pawn. Bishop's looking for a little discovered check on the king here with the 2-on-1. He's got the rook there as well, but it's a lesser piece attacking, so he may want to get his knight, or maybe he's brought his knight in. Let's just go here. His rook will probably take, so it's taken, so let's get the pieces off the board. And bishop here attacking the through to the rook. So it's been a bit of a messy game. Could have actually put a fork here, yeah, if I'd have played my cards right. So that might have been a missed opportunity, moving too fast. Yeah, so he's moved out of the way of the fork now. So let's go here. His bishop's coming down here, but we've still got our bishop here, so at this moment in time it's not looking too bad. Knight will just go, oh, he's gone there. Okay, fair enough. So what do we have in terms of growth? Let's attack the knight. Could have brought the rook through here as well. I'm missing loads of opportunities here. And so his bishop's now attacking us, so we could just bring the bishop back. but then his knight is now protecting that square. Let's just grab. Okay, so they're up material in terms of minor piece and that type of stuff. Just bring the queen out. So a quirky little bit of opening. We probably shouldn't have done it, but it's not. I think it's nice to practice weird stuff sometimes because it does get the shock factor in there. Probably messed up a little bit, going for too much quirk later on in the game. But not going to lose too much sleep over it. It's not been too bad. Okay, so this queen is obviously looking to angle to come down towards our. Let's just push this pawn. So we've got plenty of minutes, so just push the pawn onto the knight, small piece attacking the higher piece. Okay, so it's having to run. If we push here, the queen is protecting this pawn at the minute. If they forget themselves, we can take the queen if he takes the pawn. But he looks like a deep thinker, so I don't think he's going to be doing any of that. His title is Wannabe GM, so he's attacking our queen, so let's condense his queen in a little bit. Just drop back down again, yeah, that's fine. And we don't really have anything, you know, we're just going to try and mosey him up. So the seconds are running down, but they've still got plenty of time to do some serious damage. He's attacking our queen area. Let's just bring this pawn here supporting. Oh, he's blocked his rook. Is there some danger with them blocking the rook like that? His queen is going to come round, put some checks on our king, but that might be a bit late. He's defending the pawn. It's an interesting situation. Let's go here. His knight's going to get a fork, isn't it? Somehow. Some way. Queen is going to come for this pawn here. And he's defending the knight. His pawns want to be pushed past pawns. Put a bit of pressure on his game. While I'm thinking, so that's like scud missile stuff. When you got a pass pawn, it's like just do a scud missile, get it as far up the board as you can. Yeah, so he's having to think about. If I push it, then his knight's just going to take. So bring the rook here, maybe take the knight off, but his knight's going to move and get a fork on me. Please don't. He's defending, so the rook can take, but then his queen takes. So there's not a lot really to do. So what's happening on this area here? Pawn up, pawn takes. Rook takes, pawn takes. What do we want to do? I don't know why I'm doing that move. It just feels like a suffocated move, but it's not really doing anything. Dun, dun, dun. So it's like what we were saying, we've got a scud missile and potentially it's going up there to try and promote, so our opponent's trying to block it off, but in real terms they've got more material, so they could be looking to come round the back like he's attempting to do now, it looks like. I really don't know. Let's go here. They're on 34 seconds. Can't really see any patterns per se. It's going for exchanging. If he exchanges, does that? Let's just exchange. Bring the rook across maybe. Still keep pushing. That gives them something to worry about, but has he got a fork on my king and my rook? I don't know. His rook can't go back to defend now, so he probably can bring his rook here. We take, but then his knight can't, I suppose. Well, let's put a check. And are we running out of time here? So we got a queen out of this sort of funky looking situation. Let's bring that back. We don't need to do anything grandiose. Let's attack the rook. Let's take the rook, take the knight, take the pawn, grab, push. He's only got 1 second left. He's not going to get there in time to do anything. Okay, so we win time out. So the quirky opening worked after all, strange as it may seem. Simple as a simple does. Just capture, capture, attack, attack, attack. Just keep attacking, attack the queen. This is a much higher rated player, so we're going to try and use the example that was saying basically about attacking, attacking, attacking where possible, and it does happen even against higher rated players. So castle for king safety, keeping the king safe, attacking the knight, just keeping it simple, not thinking of any fancy tactics. Bring the bishop here. We've seen this before because the knight is looking to attack this pawn here and put pressure on the rook. This knight wants to come through, so let's just develop this pawn a little bit, give our bishop some breathing space. Knight's come through, attacking our knight, wants our knight in the center. We can leave it there, or we can capture the knight, or we can move the knight. Sometimes we don't want to do what they want us to do, so let's bring the knight across. And that's not trying to be fancy, it's just he's wanted to basically exchange that off. Yes, sometimes it is a good thing to take, you know, if they give it to you, just take it. But sometimes if your position isn't going to be right, there's no point in actually doing that. It would have been more benefit for them. See now, look how he's maneuvering his pieces. So his knight wants to come here, but he can't. So if we push this pawn, smaller piece attacking a higher piece can't be wrong. So let's go with that. And this is against a higher person, so now he wants to get rid of our knight, but I'm glad to get rid of it now at this point. Doubles his pawns up, so pleased with that. Dark square bishop can come out and develop a little bit, maybe to here, sort of this square. This rook is going to take the pawn here, so we're going to look to exchange the rooks off. He's not actually done that, so we'll bring our rook here to defend this pawn. He's got a 2-on-1 here, so got to be careful there. Knight can come and attack this bishop because we've got support from the bishop here. Rook's not going to take, but again, like in our example, you can do some very strange openings and win. Let's take the bishop off the board. Brings his pawns back in line, but I'm not too bothered about that. Let's attack his rook. So the principle does work against higher level players as well. So it's always, this is what makes me confident about the idea of, as a beginner, just simply attack, 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 get used to what the pieces can do, and then chalk it up as a good experience going forward. So let's attack this pawn because it's got no protection on it at the moment. Still got a long way to go time wise, and he's pushing down with the Scud missile. Do we want to block the Scud missile off, or do we want to grab this pawn? This pawn comes down, we push up. I think we can grab this pawn, I think. Don't want to lose tempo. So yeah, so he's come with the Scud, so push up. So we need to probably get our king just moving slightly across so we don't get into any sort of trap positions. That's a nice fork if we could get our rook across here. Going to move the rook. It's an obvious move, but sometimes the obvious stuff catches people out, even the higher rated players. So he has moved. Gives us time to move our pawn up slightly. They're on 2 minutes at the minute, they're thinking, so we can bring our bishop here, but it opens up our king area though, so maybe we don't want to do that. Could bring the pawn bishop here, but then his pawn pushes down onto it. So could come here, could come there. Let's go here. I think his bishop is going to move because his rook is going to want this pawn. His bishop may be coming here. Nope. Okay, so let's push this pawn so that there's no more problems on that side. And he's now looking to open up that space. So let's attack his rook because his rook is looking happy there. And then when he moves, a discovered check on his other rook should help. So even if I lose this type of game, I'm not bothered because I'm playing, I feel, some nice solid game of chess. If we go here, his bishop's going to come and put a check on us, so we just need to move out of the way, maybe onto the white square here. He's not doing that just yet, he's looking to condense us down a little bit, and he's moved himself off of the pin type thing. Yeah, can still go here. I think the bishop is still going to put the check on the king. Won't preempt it just yet. So he's not doing any of that just yet. So the bishop can attack his rook. Is the time running out here? Let's just double the rooks up for now. We're still expecting the bishop to put the check on the king, so we do have the space to do that. Our bishops are all together, so his rook could actually lean onto these our bishops. So he might actually win those bishops. Ooh, dark times. If they go there, one of the bishops can attack the rook type situation, so that's not too bad. So they're putting a lot of thought into these moves. Higher rated player. I'm pleased with what we've done. Oh, he's not actually done any of those. Bishop can attack his rook moves to here. Then he's got a 2-on-1 there, so are we just going to look for a simple exchange? Don't want to overcomplicate it. So like we said, he was going to attack these bishops and didn't really want it that way, but let's see. So if we can come here, we take the bishop. Yeah, I don't think we've done that right. We're losing time now as well. Eek, ack, ook, 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 ook. Let's take the knight. It's a piece for a piece. If his rook takes, if he doesn't, then we've got space to bring the bishop back. Time, sorry. Yep, so he does take, so we've got time to bring the bishop back to here. And I think we've got space to still do the doubling up of the rooks, attacking the king area, so I think the king is going to look for safety here. And we've got a white square bishop, so that's not going to be too much good for us on that side. He's gone for a take. Oh. If we grab, then this pawn is going to come down and wreak havoc. Yeah, let's go here. I'm going to have to sacrifice my bishop, I think. But even then, he's got a checkmate on me. Slow death. Don't panic though, don't panic. Okay, I'm gonna have to retreat. I think that's the best option, just retreat and get all my pieces helping my king. So we do have an extra piece, maybe we can make that work for us. Let's move this king. What can this bishop do? Can't do that, can I? Let's go here. I'm sort of trying to fashion coming here to come here, but then that might not work either. Yeah, so he's doubled here. Let's go here. Yeah, let's go there. Now he's trying to flag me in a sense because we're both on 30 odd seconds. Check on the king. Let's support this pawn. I'm not going to try and go for any checkmates unless he gives it to me on a plate. 19 seconds. Just going to capture. And just nice and steady, just here. 17 seconds. Let's go there. Let's move his rook out of the way of any checks. Let's see if he wants to play ball. No, let's grab this. Let's grab that with a check. Let's put a check here. 8 seconds. Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, black timed out. White wins. That's a lovely example. Playing a higher rated player. They're 400 points higher than myself, and basically that's the type of example that I'm trying to put through in the seasonal tutorial for beginners. Attack, 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 and then obviously once the situation gets to a stage whereby yes, you have an advantage, but then if you go for the checkmate, you're actually going to lose. This case in point, this opponent had a pawn that was highly advanced down the board, but time wise there was no way that they were going to get it promoted, because we brought our pieces back to protect the king area, keeping it as simple as possible.
Okay, so we're going to block off like we've done previously with the pawn. Queen's now attacking this key square here, so we're going to develop the knight to block the queen from actually attacking this pawn. Bishop now is attacking this square with the queen. So now basically what we need to do is look at defending that area. So we just attack with a smaller piece. So a smaller piece attacking a higher piece can't be wrong. You can develop the knight to block, or you can bring the queen through to exchange. We can bring the queen through just for a simple exchange. As beginners, let's try and go for exchanging similar types of pieces, and the opponent has actually done that, so we'll grab back with the knight. This pawn now is being attacked, but it's being defended by this knight. So we can look to defend ourselves by actually either attacking a piece or just simply defending and bringing the bishop through here. The knight is looking to jump into this square. I think we're just going to simply, as beginners, as we've mentioned, we may as well attack a piece. Let's attack a piece first, rather than being fancy and doing the fianchetto. So again, we've got this opportunity to take a piece off the board. We're doubling the opponent's pawns up as we speak. We do have another opportunity to attack another piece, so let's attack this piece with the knight. So we're attacking the bishop. So the whole idea about this basic tutorial for absolute beginners is just attack a piece if you can, and take that piece off the board if it's safe to do so. Don't think about keeping any tension, just get used to the idea of what pieces can attack. So we're going to attack with the smaller piece, this pawn here attacking the bishop. Don't look at what Grandmaster games and look at how they play, and again we're going to attack this bishop again with a smaller piece. Only place that this bishop can go now is here, so he'll undouble his pawns, but we're not interested in any of those fancy tactics. We're just capturing a piece, keeping it nice and simple. We do have the opportunity now to go and castle to keep our king safe. this dark square bishop potentially is coming here to attack, so we could move our king here to prevent that attack. So just keeping it simple, he's now attacked our pawn. So what we can do again is not get into a flap about it and just say to ourselves, well, what can we attack? This rook can come and attack the knight, so let's bring the rook and attack the knight. This pawn here can attack this pawn. Potentially the pawn is going to drop, but it's not, so he's brought his pawn down. So a smaller piece attacking a higher piece. We can attack this knight, but he wants to take this pawn, so we're going to just bring the bishop here to defend this pawn first. So it's not always attack, but it's also looking at what the opponent is trying to attack to. Our rook has got an X-ray through onto this pawn here. If we get this pawn onto the knight, then the knight has to move. So then we would win the pawn back in a sense. So we're going to attack it with a smaller piece. So the knight has to move. So the knight's moved, attacking our knight. But we do have a tempo because we do get the pawn back. So we can capture this pawn like we mentioned, putting a check onto the king, so the king has to move or the bishop comes and defends. We then win the knight because we won the tempo, because there's nothing supporting their knight. So now potentially we're looking at doubling up the rook, keeping it simple. Double the rooks up on the file to support each other, keeps them fairly strong. So we can now look to attack this bishop by pushing this smaller piece up, so it can move 2 squares up on the first move. The bishop potentially is going to come back here to support the rook, but because we have more material on the board, we can capture and take pieces off the board. And that's the whole idea. So now we can capture this bishop because he only has one piece protecting, which is the rook. So then we can capture the rook and keeping that simple, putting pressure onto this pawn, and they've resigned. Let's have a look at the analysis on that one. That was a pretty quick game, but it's using the principles that we're talking about in terms of, as a beginner, keep things simple, pushing the pawn to block the advancement of the pawn. Queen has come down attacking the weak square in front of the king, developing the knight to protect this pawn. Bishop's now attacking the weak square even more, and a smaller piece attacking a higher piece, which is the queen, and then looking for the exchange with the queen. If you get an opportunity to exchange as a beginner, exchange the same sort of strength piece, then do so. Leave the tension stuff until later on in the games when you're developing your strategies even more. So they capture and we capture back. And we debated about doing fianchetto, bringing the bishop in front here towards the knight, but because as we're learning the game, let's utilize the power of the pieces that we've got. So we're attacking the knight and we take the knight off the board, no messing about. And we attack their bishop and attack the bishop again and again and again. So these types of psychologies, these types of strategies do actually upset higher rated players as well as lower rated players, because it is simple. And we castle for king safety, very paramount, king safety. If your king isn't safe, you are going to get checkmated. So as we're human, we wanted to prevent the bishop from coming to attack our rook, so we went there, but then the opponent attacked the pawn. Now, I know in cases such as these, lower rated players will have a panic attack and think, oh no, I've lost the pawn, I'm a pawn down. But as we discussed through the game, it's about looking at getting the better position. And as we discussed, we had the knight and the rook attacking this particular area here. His knight wanted to take this pawn, so if we pushed onto this knight, he would have captured this pawn as well. So we made the correct decision by actually supporting the pawn first with the bishop, and then we could put pressure onto the knight. The knight then came and attacked our knight, which is a nice move. It's using the principle of attacking a piece, but it's at the expense of losing tempo. And when you do get a check on a king, you actually win a tempo, because they have to do something to actually protect that king. And if they've attacked you but their other piece hasn't got any protection on, you can freely take it. So now we're up a minor piece. And simple is as simple does. Rooks on open files, if you can get your rooks on open files supporting each other, then it's a fairly strong power base for you to get an advantage in the game. So we start pushing towards the dark square bishop now with a smaller pawn, and the opponent released the pressure. This pawn was actually protecting. Let's just go back one. Yep, so he had a 2-on-1 protection, so that protection potentially should have been maintained, but as soon as they release that, then we have like a 2-on-1, and at that point there, because we're up material, and it was going to be a bit of a struggle for white to maintain a semblance in the game. So again, as the seasonal video for beginners in chess, it's about attacking and capturing pieces that you can, attacking key spaces, key squares, and basically the smaller piece attacking a higher piece can't be wrong, so long as that smaller piece cannot be taken for free. You can set pieces up to actually get captured, so that then you're in a better position, but don't lose faith if you actually miss an attack that the opponent has actually taken of yours. So if they've taken a free pawn, as we mentioned here with the knight, just wick back a bit. Yep. Don't lose faith. Have a look at the board, have a look at the position. What is the actual threat from the opponent? Just because they've won that pawn, are they actually in a better position?
To look at time management, but try and not miss stuff. I'm going to try and keep it as basic as possible. Just push here, knight, king safety, castle, and he's looking to blast through, attack the bishop, capture, keep it simple. I've got no time to look at complicated lines or anything. Let's go here. Bishop takes, queen takes, rook's on the pawn, he's going to defend the pawn. No, he's not, so let's grab. And let's support. If they forget themselves and leave themselves like that, we grab the rook. We highlighted that position in the beginners. Castle, queen, well sorry, check on the king. Rook can't come down there, let's go here. Knight here. Queen can come across, but I'm overthinking. I think I'm just going to do something desperate here. Looking for the exchange of the queen. Yeah, let's just get that off. Let's just push through. So we don't really need to rush to try and go and get a checkmate, that's the thing. You know, we can just move our pieces around now. Okay, so his knight's looking for this pawn down the bottom. It's not doing much protection for this pawn here. Then if he grabs it, let's go here. So he's looking at whipping off loads of pawns all over the place. Yeah. Okay, let's just go here. It's not going to be getting like a checkmate thing or anything. It's not worth doing it. Let's go here, grab this pawn. Okay, so let's go here. He's looking for a magic fork. protecting there. Let's go with a check. Comes down for the knight. And let's go for a magic fork ourselves. Let's grab here. Let's just block the king off. Let's move our king up. Move the king up. Grab. Move the king out of the way. Let's push a pawn. And let's just start moving across fast. And checkmate.
Keep it simple. I'm going to develop the knight attacking this pawn here. It's got no protection on. We could attack it, but he could attack back and then his knight would be on this pawn here. So you see how he's got a 2-on-1 with the potential for the knight if he came here. So we're going to just advance our knight through, protecting the pawn at the moment. Okay, so that's nice steady development. So in those terms there, it is a small element of keeping tension, but we don't have a clear attack that keeps us safe. So I'm going to develop my bishop now, defending my knight from the potential attack from the bishop coming here. We could have brought our bishop to this square here, attacking the weak. Oh, that must be a mouse slip. That must have been a mouse slip. Okay, so we're going to go and castle anyway. So I think they probably were going to castle there. So he's going to have to castle by hand. So they may have lost a bit of tempo. So our bishop could come here to attack the knight, but there's nothing behind the knight really that's forcing the knight to stay there. So we could look to just develop our next piece. So this is different to the first two games where we're not immediately attacking anything at the moment, but we're positioning our pieces safely. This pawn is protecting this pawn, the knight is protecting that pawn. Our bishop potentially is looking to come and start attacking this bishop here, but our opponent wants his knight to come into here potentially. So when you see these pawns pushing down here, I call these scud missiles. Sometimes you can ignore them, sometimes not so much, because what they do is, I call it lazy man's chess. Yeah, they just push, and then eventually the pawn ends up here, and then you're scrabbling around trying to find out how to get rid of it. So I'm going to block the pawn and keeping it simple. If you ever see somebody pushing like the H or the A pawn, just block the pawn from coming any further down the board. It's called lazy man's chess in my eyes. It's like, well, okay, I can't think of anything else, so I'm going to push down the side there. And it does work if they put their pieces together, you know, correctly. So going to bring the knight around now because we're going to attack the bishop, and we're attacking it 3 times. One with the knight and twice with the bishop and the queen. Okay, so we could take with the knight or take with the queen. I'm going to take with the queen. If we take with the knight, it releases this pawn here to be able to do some attacks up on this side. That's an interesting one. But at the minute my queen is all blocked in, so I think I want to get my queen a little bit active. So we capture. So now their queen, see where the queen has gone? There's a diagonal all the way through, yep, towards our king area. We wanted our bishop to be attacking their bishop. His knight wants to jump here to attack our queen. I like the pawn pushing here on the F, but the bishop has got the pin through to our king. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to attack the bishop, but I believe the knight is going to come through here to attack our queen. What do we do from there? We do have options of moving the queen slightly here, but it's not doing that because behind, if our knight takes this knight, his pawn takes, and then his rook has got pressure on this pawn here. Is that something that we want? I'm actually going to take the bishop, capture. When you've got so many options to choose from, it's probably safer to go with your initial gut feeling that is not going to put pressure around your king area initially. This pawn doesn't have any protection on it at the moment. We could attack his knight to say, well, what is it you're actually wanting to do? So a smaller piece attacking a higher piece can't be wrong, because what we really don't want to do is open up this pawn so that his rook is then pressuring our king area. So he does capture, so we can capture here. His queen still has the diagonal towards our king area, but we've got the pawn protecting here, the pawn protecting there. So now his king has had to come out into the open. Our knight can actually put a check on without too much discussion onto the king. Potentially looking to push forward with the pawn here to make space for the rook so that we can maybe double the rooks up. So hopefully you can see how we've got to this stage so far. His king's gone back, so it does give us a bit of tempo to move the pawn up. Conscious that if we do move the pawn up, we're leaving the space here for his queen to come here, attack our queen. If our queen takes, his pawn takes, we suppose we can push the pawn up. So I'm actually going to push the pawn through like we discussed. His knight is still chomping at the bit to come and put a check on our king here. So that's a nice key square for his knight. So he wins a bit of a tempo in terms of being able to do that. Move the king or queen across a little bit, keeping protection of this pawn. So he's not gone there just yet. Our knight could take the pawn, but I really want to get my rooks doubled up. Got to make sure that there's no fork with this deadly knight. And the knight has come in eventually, so we can move the queen across like we mentioned. So if we move it across so that he's not attacking, well, not going to capture this pawn. Does he have a magical fork anyway? Yeah, he's now challenging the rook. Okay, so we can move the rook up or just move it back down again, but then he can just keep challenging. So I'm going to bring the rook here, so it still gives us space to bring our rook here to get a doubling on this pawn area. Smaller piece attacking a higher piece, so he's attacking our knight now, so we can bring our knight around, attacking his piece. As you can see, we're still following this process of basic attacking of pieces. That's the whole idea behind this tutorial of attacking pieces, attacking key squares, and not playing around with keeping the tension. There's a right way to do the tension and the wrong way to do the tension. So his knight has come down, so we can double the rooks in readiness for attacking this weak area. Yeah, so earlier we kept the tension because we didn't want this pawn coming through. Now he's snuck his queen through into the lion's den. So what is he trying to do with this queen? His queen can take this pawn with a check on our king. If we bring the pawn up here to support, then his queen can no longer do that. He can't come in here because the king is there. His knight can jump here, but our rook can take. So I think pushing the pawn here seems to be an appropriate action. So always be mindful of what it is that the opponent is trying to do. That is the key thing, and then block it off and then continue your attack if it's fruitful for you. But if your opponent is doing multiple attacks, you have to do multiple defenses. It's as simple as that. So a smaller piece attacking a higher piece can't be wrong. It's where this knight is planning to go. Let's go here. If he does come down, our knight can take. If he goes across, the pawn can take. So it's potentially, he's going for the exchange, which is I suppose okay for us in a sense. So we're going to capture, attacking his rook at the same time. Now our rooks have this open file here. So we have options. We can go for an exchange, or we can put pressure on his queen to say, what do you actually want to do? We can come up here to attack these pawns, but because his queen is so advanced around our king area, I'm a little bit concerned. So I'm going to put pressure on their queen, keeping it simple, attacking a higher piece with a lesser piece. It's not too bad because their king hasn't got any protection at the moment, but we have to jostle this position now. Okay, so we're down to 1 minute, so they'll be looking maybe to try and win on time. That is a strategy in its own right. And let's see, what does our queen want to do? If our queen comes here, then we have, and his rook takes this pawn, then we have this type of attack on his king area, and he's not wearing any of that, but we can still attack the king here. So the king is looking to get to safety, so it's like castling by hand in a sense, you know, so he gets to safety here. So what do, oh, he's not gone there. So we can put a check on with our queen. And where does he go? Oh, he has to block down. Well, so now this is where the tricky bits come in, because we're going to look like we're going to have to exchange the queens. Okay, so positionally it doesn't look too bad, but when you can't, I'm only on 32 seconds as well. Hey, we could develop the pawn. Let's just develop the rook. So I'm going to have to move fairly quick now, so I probably won't be able to talk through any of the moves now, so put a checkmate. So, okay, let's have a look at the analysis on that one. Right, so again, this is the Christmas special, the tutorial, basically just having a look at the strategy, the one strategy, which is to attack when possible. Attack when possible and block your opponent's attacks when possible. So the bishop came through, we attacked the pawn. We didn't take the pawn because they had multiple potential attacks on our pieces. Yep, so if our knight had captured here, then his knight could have captured here, then he would have a pressure here from his bishop and the knight. So it's actually capturing when it's appropriate. Hello, I'm just doing a vid. It's capturing when it's appropriate and safe to do so. So then we developed the bishop coming through, and I think this may have been a mouse slip from the opponent on this side here. I think they potentially went for castling, but it does happen. So it happens in real life over the board games as well. So they developed the knight, and like I said, this game was different to the first two where we had the opportunity to capture pieces early on. In this one it was a matter of protecting our pieces so that we could position our pieces to attack the opponent's pieces. And case in point, the lazy man's chess here, when you see the Scud missiles coming down on the H file or the A file, take some consideration into blocking them off as best possible. Sometimes you can leave them, more times as a beginner I would say just block it off for now until you feel comfortable about letting them come down further and further. So then they developed their bishop, but then we had three pieces attacking this piece. We had the bishop and we had the queen. So then they captured. So then we developed our piece and we attacked the bishop like we said earlier. And then they gave us a combination attack. And like we discussed, we didn't want this pawn being able to come here because then the rook would be having space around our king area. And then the development of their queen would be fairly strong, yeah, depending on how they worked it. So if you've got the opportunity to exchange away from the potential threat, especially around opening space around your king area. So attacking a higher piece with a smaller piece can't be wrong, so we captured the knight and then attacked the king with the knight, putting a check on. And now we're looking to try and open space on this E file, F file. So the knight comes through eventually. We did say the knight did want to come here, so we were always aware that that was potentially going to happen, and the queen was going to protect the pawn, bringing the rook down but keeping enough space so that we could double the rooks. And the queen coming down here looks fairly devastating, but having a look at what it is that they're trying to attempt to do, then you can block it off. And then we attack the knight, then attack the knight again, making space now for our rooks to work on the f-file. But initially we're looking at, well, what is this queen actually wanting to do? So putting pressure on it, and now tripling up almost like an Alekhine gun, and putting pressure onto the king, and then the king again, and then the queen, and then checkmate. So keep it simple, attack when you can, block your opponent's attacks when you can, and maneuver your pieces to save squares when you can.
a draw.
Okay, continuing the tutorial for chess beginners, the Christmas special. So we've just attacked the pawn here, they've defended, so they've spent a bit of energy defending there. We're going to attack his weak pawn here, supported by the king. And there's a nice maneuver that you can actually do, which is capturing this pawn here, because it puts a check on the king. And then the knight puts a check on the king, but then that's wrong, because this bishop was supposed to be supporting. So I've seen this movement done many times. Yeah, so where the bishop takes, then they think that they can do that. But because this pawn isn't advanced, this bishop isn't supporting the knight, so you can't do that, because the queen will take the knight. Yep, so now you have to fashion a different way of working. So working simply, attacking the piece, putting a check on the king now because they've captured back, and if we blast through to the center a little bit here, we're putting pressure on the king slowly but surely, and this is how you sort of circumvent that type of practice or error, if you like. So the knights come down with ferocity. Just bring the queen here, just protecting this pawn. Okay, we could capture the knight, or we could bring the bishop back here just to attack the other knight. So regrouping is a key essential thing to learning chess. Nothing is perfect. Smaller piece attacking a higher piece. It's always a crucial point to remember. Yes, we've made an error in this opening movement, but how can we regroup to make it better and stronger for us? King safety is a key thing. So we could look to go into castle. So always remember, yes, you are going to make a mistake in chess. If you're not willing to accept that you're going to make a mistake in chess, then chess might not be the right thing for you. So we're going to attack this pawn here, looking to attack the king area. Okay, so we're going to bring the rook into the game because it puts pressure on the knight, so the knight can't move. The king's move now, he's had to do extra movements that he really didn't want to be making. Going to develop this knight now, okay, with all our pieces sort of focused towards the king area. Let's move this knight. His knight doesn't have any protection on it at the moment, but our rook can't go here because the bishop is actually attacking that area. So we do have options. We could leave the rook there, the knight will take. Could bring the rook back so that the knight then takes back, or bring the rook all the way back, or we could just take the rook. Okay, so now nice and simple, just develop the queen, looking for the rook to attack the queen, which is a higher piece. All the while we're focusing on the king area, because just because the opponent has more material does not mean that they've won the game. You have to have the position to actually win the game. So his knight now is attacking a higher piece, which is our queen. Our queen can move two places. It can go here, it can go here, looking for the diagonal to put a check on the king here. So we'll do that because a single knight attack is not too scary. He's got his queen, which is hitting here, he's got his knight, which is there, but the king is also here, and we've got the rook as well. So he'd have to develop his queen to get the third person, which would be the rook. Yeah, so a small move like the queen moving here, going to here, would work for them. But what do we have? We did have the check here, but if his queen drops here, which I think they will do, that stops the check on the king. We have the bishop taking this pawn here. If he does do that, and we have a pin, a lovely pin, on his king. Our queen can obviously take his knight if he does move his queen, so there's something to think about on that side. Yeah, so we do have that element there. So there's options. We've got this major attack here because we can't, his king can't move. He's actually sacrificed the knight. He's actually sacrificed the knight. The bishop can still take this pawn here, but obviously the queen is not going to take because the queen is protecting. So I'm going to actually capture the knight here. I'm a bit shocked at that particular move. So the knight can actually move back to whence it came, or it can move here, looking to come here to put a third party onto that particular pawn. So I think we'll do that, bring this around, looking to bring the knight across here. We have this, and he's again busy attacking our queen. So we do have the option again of here, but the knight now can defend by going here, but it's closing down and suffocating the king a little bit and blocking his queen's access. So we've actually clawed back the situation. It's moved the king, so we can actually take the knight. So we will take the knight with the queen, and the bishop now has got an x-ray through to our knight. So one of two things. Let's see, queen can't come here because the pawn will take, and the queen can't go here because, well, it can go here, but the queen takes. Well, the bishop will take. So let's think that through. Queen cannot protect that knight somehow. So what pressure can we put on their king? That is what my thought process is thinking. If only the bishop could come here, and then we would have a nice attack here, but his queen is supporting. Is there anything else that we can attack? We could attack his queen, saving our but it's not saving really, because if we go here, his bishop still will take the knight, then our queen takes his queen, his rook then still takes our queen. So then we're a rook and a bishop the same. So time is running out, but you have to put some thought process into your movements. I am thinking attack, 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 or defense against the attack, but I cannot defend this knight. If my bishop went here, his bishop would have to take the bishop. That's no good. I like to think of silly thoughts. If we take the pawn, then at least his bishop's taking the knight. For I've got a pawn, and then I've got another pawn here. I think that's going to work. Let's grab this pawn. So we're capturing a piece, 2 pawns for a minor piece. I think that's a good enough exchange. So we talked it through. So now we need to develop our pieces. He's got a nice position with his bishop. So I'm going to attack the queen. He's got the pawn here, sides with the rook. But in essence, we've got two pawns extra, so maybe we can dance a little bit with these pawns. I'm not sure that they're going to exchange the queen, but they have done, so we can capture. And then the rook will take this pawn here. So we have a dark square bishop. And we can capture this pawn on the far side. We have to be careful though, because if you see, his bishop can actually attack. His rook maybe can come across, but I think I'm going to take this pawn. Again, keeping it simple for the seasonal Christmas special. And he's not doing anything about that, so I'm going to bring my bishop back here, looking for a discovered check on his rook. So I'm going to push the pawn up, making him, hopefully hypnotizing him into the fact that, well, nothing's happening, and we can take the rook off the board with the bishop. Oh, and we have. So we can take the bishop off the board, the rook off the board. So we have several pawns, keeping it nice and simple, and time is running out. So if we can, let's see, what can we actually do? Push past pawns. And just defend here, so looking at what the opponent's trying to do, and keep pushing. 56 seconds, so I need to be a bit urgent now, and keep pushing. He's blocked his own dark square bishop in, so let's keep going. 53 seconds, and we get a resignation. Let's have a look at the analysis board on that one, see how we went on. Okay, so let's get the evaluation tools. So we push through the center, attack to the pawn, and then attack to the weak pawn in front of the king. The opponent attacked us, and then, as I've seen in many games at the lower rated level, basically this type of action is taken, bishop taking the weak pawn, but not realizing that this bishop doesn't have any protection for this particular knight. This pawn should have been moved first, because then that supports the knight coming here, putting a check on the king if the king takes, as we mentioned in the game. So I said, well, okay, let's just regroup. And it's having that ability to regroup. Yes, you may make it, yeah, you will make mistakes in chess as you're developing throughout your game. I make mistakes all the time, and it's about trying to nullify those mistakes as best possible to make them a lesser impact. But also what I've seen in my games and in other games that I've watched is how people come back from disadvantaged positions, disadvantaged material losses. So we now focused on what we're practicing, which is attacking with smaller pieces against higher pieces, capturing where we can, supporting pieces where we can, and opening up pieces to develop so that they can attack. So we attacked with the bishop because we were in a bad position at this moment in time in terms of material, but positionally we were okay. There's a massive difference between having material but having a poor position. You could have 50 million pieces on the board, but if you're going to get checkmated in 2 moves, those pieces are no good. And that's the idea behind what I'm trying to explain here, is that as many pieces as you've got on the board, if they're not doing anything, then they're not worth anything on the board. So they have to be doing something. So the knight attacks the queen, yeah, a smaller piece attacking a higher piece. We bring the queen back. And they attack our bishop, we bring the bishop back, attacking the knight. Yeah, so that looks like that was the right move to make, that's all good. And it did suggest taking with the bishop, but I wanted to keep as many pieces on the board as I wanted, as far as I could see. So a smaller piece attacking a higher piece, I had no problems with that. King safety eventually. So now the file on the F, as far as I can see, looks like we're going to own that file. So we push through with our pawn, attacking their pawn, and that's saying take with the bishop, but we wanted to maintain pressure on the king and the knight. So the king moves, so it's making them do moves they don't really want to do. Developing the knight through with a plan of moving towards the king area. And you know, I don't think I saw this move. So the queen takes, and yes, see what I mean? I missed stuff. Look at that. Queen just taking the knight. So we worked really hard to try and get that knight back, or any piece back, and we didn't even need to. Look at that. Queen taking the knight. So we were so focused on owning the file to bring the rook here to put pressure on the queen, we forgot, and we didn't see a free knight here. Anyway, we'll continue on. This is showing you errors, mistakes happen in games, but it's not about losing faith. It's about, well, if you want to get better at chess, you have to learn to accept that you're going to make these mistakes. You're not going to see everything, but when you do your evaluation like this, then it makes you better because you're more aware and you start looking for these types of attacks and advantages. So the knight comes down and attacks, and we bring the queen up, which is showing us a slight advantage, which is good. So the knight is now sacrificed itself, and we captured with the knight. So sort of equalized in that sense. So it was probably 2 moves away from us actually being able to capture the knight, and then we grabbed the knight anyway. And now the gauge bar showing that we're more or less in a bit of an advantage. I bring the knight back, and then we go for a little check. Okay, so when you do see the evaluation bar and you see the moves that it suggests, you know, you think, well, why didn't I see that? Well, you will do once you start actually evaluating your games. If you're taking it serious and you want to get better, you'll start seeing those better moves. We went for a queen check on the king, and then we captured the knight. Yep, the knight could have gone and blocked, but it didn't, so we're showing a bit of an advantage there. And then we can capture the pawn, because 2 pawns for a minor piece is equal. So now we're showing a bit of an advantage. Bring the queen back for the exchange, capture. Just seeing if there's anything major. We did capture the pawn, brought the bishop back. Is there any major dips from this point? And we went for the discovered check on the rook. It's always nice to be able to do discovered checks on pieces, especially if it's a pawn move. In the lower rated area, when somebody does a pawn move, they don't actually look at what that pawn move was. They just see that it was a pawn move going forward, and they don't see any potential attacks after that. So it's something to be mindful of when you're making your own moves. Are you opening up space for the opponent to actually attack a piece of yours, a major piece of yours, by moving the pawn? So at this point here, we just wanted to gravitate up. And a small key point here, the king move up here to protect the pawns. Again, I've seen many cases where people will focus on just pushing the pawn up and miss a little bit of gold. Not saying it would have been catastrophic if you didn't. Yeah, so if we pushed up, say, and the king took, yeah, it just gives them a little bit of weight towards these 2 pawns that are linked, but it's nothing major. Okay, because if they carried on pushing, yeah, so let's say that's showing the bishop here, saying the king here, then obviously, well, if the bishop blocks, it blocks. So we've still got avenues to move around. So it's a longer way of doing it, a longer winded way of doing it, and you don't want to allow these 2 passed pawns to actually start moving. So in a nutshell, that was a pretty good game to show the attacking where necessary, blocking where necessary, looking at what the opponent's trying to attack, defending where necessary if it's appropriate, finding appropriate positions on the board, and basically the strategy is just take pieces, take pieces, and take pieces. But have a look at what you're trying to strategize. If you're trying to strategize, this is a key point, if you're trying to strategize the bishop taking the pawn type situation, and then you're looking at maybe the knight coming here, always remember that the knight needs to be supported, especially if the queen is there, you know, waiting to take it off the board. Yeah, because it is a nice move, but once you've established this type of thing, yeah, and obviously it's showing that's going to come into play here. If it does do that, if you wanted to try doing that, yeah, you can still try it, because the king can take, then the knight can go here with a check, king move into here, yeah, but the queen is no longer going to take the bishop, you know. So how many pieces have they got? 1, 2, 3, 4, and you've got 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so the whole idea is gone because the knight is there protecting the bishop. So you've got to think ahead, in a sense, not too far ahead. Just think to yourself, well, if I do make that attacking move, because I'm wanting to put a bit of style into my game, what's the follow-up? Yeah, is the knight working? Is that then going to get me the bishop back? That's too advanced. So in my head, I'm saying keep it simple, attack where necessary, a simple attack that gives you the benefit and the advantage.
If you're not able to accept losing, then there's no point in actually playing chess, because you are going to lose. You know, you're going to lose, and it's how you then come back from that. Well, this is a strange opening. Let's go here. But yeah, you can improve on the way that you lose, and then just develop and keep going until eventually you're losing less, or you're not losing as ugly as you have lost before, that type of situation. So just be happy if you're developing at all within the game of chess. Ooh, let's see, bishop here. This looks funky. Not happy with my knight being like this or anything. It's odd. It looks very strange. Oh, it's still going to come down. Never mind, we can take. Let's capture. What do we have? Some sort of rhythm. Attack here. Who wants to own the file? We do. Let's just take. What do we have? Who's looking to see take with his pawn? No, it's okay, let's go here. That might have been the wrong way actually. I should have gone there. King. Got pawn majority on this side, so let's work our way over here somehow. Okay, just get to here, probably drop this one. Yeah, let's capture. That's okay, let's go here. Split these pawns up at least, so that's a good thing. And what do we have? Probably drop this pawn on the bishop. No, it doesn't. Interesting. Oh, look at this pawn here. We let the pawn go. Savage times. Savage, savage, savage. Oh, dear me. That was not a good demonstration. That was not a good demonstration, kid. What are we attempting to do here? Some strange reason I feel these pawns can look after themselves. I believe they can look after themselves. Let's go here. Don't really want that pawn. I'm just moving to move. Something's telling me they can look after themselves. Let's go here. There. So he's got a runaway bride. Ah, very nice, very nice. I don't need to accept that situation. Something's not right in the state of Texas. Dun, 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 dun. 54 seconds. Dun, 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 dun. He has to come down for these pawns, but he can't. His king can't just get in at the minute because he's blocked there and he's blocked there. So he's working his way around to come around the other side. And at this point here, I think I'm sick of his bishop. Yeah, so exchange on our terms. Yeah. So we could do that. If he takes, then we can get to his black pawn faster than he can over on this side. Yes!
So hopefully we can use the basics and get some advantage in this game. So developing the knight, going to attack a piece with a smaller piece, which is the pawn attacking the knight. And again I'm going to attack the knight with a smaller piece, which is the pawn. And is there any more attacks? There's a discover check with the bishop actually on the knight here, so we can push through, open up the pawn here. And as we mentioned in the intro video, when you do pawns like moves like these, normally at this at this level, they miss those opportunities. So we can actually grab this knight if his knight wants to take, we've got the queen supporting the knight here. So he doesn't take, so we can capture his knight here. His pawn grabs, so his pawn currently has got no protection on if he does capture. And so he's gone for the 2 moves with the pawn. And this is where we can use en passant if need be. Have to be careful because he does have this pawn behind here which could fork our bishop and our knight, but he doesn't have anything currently supporting that. But also our knight is currently under attack from the pawn, and he's not actually taken our knight. So we could save our knight and bring the knight back. I think that makes more sense than actually doing the en passant. So let's save the knight. And this opponent's moving very fast now. Again, we could do the en passant type thing. It opens up his queen, because his queen probably takes or his pawn takes here. But you still have to be very careful because you could still be falling into a trap of some sort. Our queen does have a diagonal towards the king, but the bishop will just come and defend, so it's not too much of an attack. We could look to develop our bishop. Again, like I said, we could do en passant, but do we really want to invite the queen in? Do we even want to open this rook up, because the rook could come here towards the king side? Okay, so there's things to think about, and I'm going to attack his pawn here after all of that decision. So there's moments to attack and defend, so the knight can defend here. We could have gone for the queen exchange type situation because we are up material, and we could still look to do that. Could capture this pawn in the meantime because his queen is no longer there, and he's still not wanting to attack, so we could take, but then it opens his bishop. So we could just push the pawn forward a little bit. Now he's attacking our piece, so we can bring the bishop here with a discovered check on his higher piece, which is the queen, which means our knight can actually go anywhere. So we can just bring the knight here for now. Doesn't move his queen, so we can actually capture the queen. We do have a check on his king with our knight, but in the meantime we'll just capture the pawn here. Knight can put a check on the king like we said. Bishop's got a nice diagonal towards the king, so it can attack the king. Well, not just come to this position first. And the knight's jumped onto the rook, so I think they're playing give up chess now. And we can capture here with the queen, and we're looking to try and suffocate the king. Like I say, it's not always straightforward when, let's just go here with a check on the king. And he's on the dark square. Let's develop this dark square bishop. See how I'm trying to work my pieces together. I'm not relying on one piece. Maybe we could have done this move, but his king still escapes. And then if we bring the bishop here, okay, so he's going to be attacking our, let's go with this bishop attack. Okay, so then we can go here with the queen, and then working the pieces together, bring the bishop here, and then his bishop blocks, and then that's checkmate. Okay, so it's a 15-minute, 10-second game as part of the Christmas special for absolute beginners. So hopefully we can spend a bit more time looking at the potential movements that we can make. So this pawn here was being attacked by our knight. Now the opponent's defended. So as you've seen in our previous videos, we'll just push through the center here. And we'll capture As part of this series, we're keeping it simple, capturing where we can. If the opponent gives us something, we're taking it, so long as it's beneficial to us and we're not going to lose out in the short term. We're not looking long term at this moment in time, because this is just for absolute beginners. We're looking at keeping it simple, straight to the point. A smaller piece attacking a higher piece would defend the king. We could bring our bishop here to look to exchange, but then his knight will be able to take our knight. So a smaller piece attacking the higher piece, also doubly protecting the knight, seems to make sense. So it's the smallest of things about attacking key pieces, using the smallest of tools that you've got to actually gain advantage. So we've got two pieces under attack at the minute. We can simply capture with the queen here, and if they don't move the bishop, we can take the bishop as well. So we've got to this sort of position fairly quickly, but it's getting a good understanding of capturing pieces, getting pieces off the board, so that your opponent themselves can't have an artillery, an army that can come and attack you later on. And this strategy seems to work quite nicely against even higher rated players. So this isn't just really a strategy that I'm throwing in there for beginners per se. It is really about, well, looking at beginners beating higher level players as well, because the confusing factor about taking the pieces off the board is the fact that they don't have any artillery left. Now, this diagonal here is an interesting one. You can take the pawn, but they're potentially looking to come here with their bishop to attack the queen, because the knight and the queen are protecting. This pawn is currently okay, so we could take the pawn, and then if the bishop does come down, we can bring our queen back down to say here. Does that make sense? Or maybe to here, because his knight will come and attack. Or do we just develop our other pieces? In the eyes of what we're actually doing within this particular game is about attack, attack, attack. So we're going to attack to see whether or not the bishop does actually come there. If they don't, then we can take the rook for free, and they have done. So we've worked out that we have a safe square to go back to, apparently. So let's bring the queen back down. So we've actually grabbed a pawn extra from that particular opening so far. But mindful that you don't want to overwork your pieces either. And we've overworked our queen, because he's come out, grabbed a pawn, it's had to come back again. And we need to start looking at developing our pieces. But develop the pieces for a reason. Don't just develop the pieces just to say, well, I need to get it out, but it's not doing anything. If it's either protecting a piece, or it's allowing you to actually go and castle for king safety, or you can attack a piece, then move it. So have your own rationale as to what you're doing with that piece. So now the knight's moved here. This is a key square because the rook is obviously going to come and challenge the queen. Okay, so that's something to be mindful of, excuse me. So in the meantime, what do we have? Are we thinking of castling kingside? Can our bishop come out and do some damage to their bishop, because now the queen is not protecting that? But if we did do that, the rook can still come across here, then it's got the pin through to our queen. So in essence, we've basically given them a bishop. Yeah, if we do that. So it's little things like that we've got to be careful of. Let's see, so we could bring the bishop out, but just bring it to this point here. I think his rook is going to challenge. I'm going to bring it here because of the diagonal that we've got towards their queen here. I still believe this will come. So the diagonal's gone. Well, he's actually blocked that attack, but or has he just opened up his white squared bishop? Either way, he's blocked the attack. Does that win us a bit of a tempo in terms of developing our knight so we can castle onto queenside? Going to bring the knight out so that we can potentially castle on the queen side. Only because they've got this file here with their rook and stuff. So there's probably no point in castling on the king side because they're going to have all their army coming down on that side. Now it's realised that we're looking to go and castle queen side, so if we go and castle queen side, this pawn is going to be attacked by the bishop here. Okay, so we can do one of two things. We can bring our bishop through here to attack the bishop. Probably expect the pawn to drop. He's got one piece, queen here, and the bishop on that square. So if we did capture the pawn, his knight can actually freely take here. So it's like an even exchange type thing. Is this something that we want to get into? I think so. As part of the strategy, which is to attack, 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 and capture where necessary, to reduce the amount of pieces that your opponent's got on the board, so they can't formulate any strategies against you. Keeping it simple as a beginner. Don't think of anything fancy, any fancy strategies or fancy openings, anything like that. Just get used to the feel of the pieces that you've got. What can they do? Yeah. What can they attack? What can they take off the board? Get used to that feeling, yeah, of taking pieces off the board appropriately, being safe when you're doing it, and targeting. So it's not actually gone with the pawn move. So our principle is capturing, and he wants to basically replace the bishop with the queen so that he's still got this angle here on this pawn when we go on queenside castle. But also I believe he wants to go on queenside castle himself. So I'm going to queenside castle. Our rook now is opposite his queen. It might not look like anything at this moment in time, but a few moves time, that might be a key position that we've got. Okay, so what we can do is potentially push this pawn here. If his pawn does take, our bishop takes, maybe his queen takes and our queen takes, then this rook is looking a little bit powerful, like we said. Putting the rook opposite the queen sometimes unsettles the situation. His white square bishop still has the attack here on our knight or bishop, so we've got to be mindful of that. So I'm going to push the pawn up. So it's attacking a small piece but also attacking a higher piece in a fork. So ordinarily they would take, but he might be now thinking, well, ooh, he's gonna do some sort of discover check type thing with his knight from his rook on my queen. So in these longer games, really do take your time to have a look at the potential attack positions that you can get, and then potential capture positions that you can get, and don't just throw them out willy-nilly. I mean, I say I'm not perfect. Like I've missed moves, as you've seen in the previous seasonal instructional tutorial videos, but you develop as you keep going through, yeah. And if I don't miss things, then yeah, you'll think I'm some sort of robot or something. So always think, oh, it's pushed past. Interesting development. So basically, in a nutshell, what he's done there, let's have a look at this. He's come down to attack our bishop. If we take his bishop, because he's left this bishop here for us for free, if he takes that bishop, our knight can take the pawn and our rook is on his queen. So I would assume his queen is probably going to come here to attack our knight because it's got no protection on. So our rook can take his rook because it's got a check on his king, and the king can take, but I would expect that the rook would take here. So in the meantime, our knight is being under attack from his queen, and his queen is here around about our king area. But I suppose we can allow them to take the because our pawn would be on their knight, so we'd be able to take here. So I think there's an advantage after all of that. It's, to me, I think I went too far there because I'm like going forward with the calculations. You don't need to look that far as a beginner, but if you can, it helps with your development going forward. Being able to calculate up to a certain point is okay, but you have to remember this key thing, this one key thing: your opponent does not have to follow your calculation unless it's a forced thing where you've put in checks on the king, yeah, or you're really sort of like controlling or maneuvering, or they have to make this move because or else they're going to lose maybe their queen or their rook or whatever. Then just remember, the opponent does not have to make those moves. Even the only one that they have to make a move on really is a check on the king, you know, is the king. They may want to sacrifice their queen for a better position, they might sacrifice their rook for a better position. So your calculation that you make is just your calculation, yeah. If they follow it the way that you calculated, then that's all good. But always remember, especially as a beginner, just remember, your opponent does not have to respond the way that you think. So we're going to capture his bishop because he's left it. It's a smaller piece attacking a higher piece. He can do the same thing to us, and we've worked out that potentially we can take here, and it leaves his queen open for an attack on his area. What did we say? He's not followed anything that we've calculated. So now we have to reassess our situation and our initial calculation, yeah, and say, well, what actually happened here? He's now attacking our queen, yeah, so a smaller piece attacking a higher piece. He's still got this pawn on our bishop, so this makes for an interesting situation. Queen could move across here, doesn't really want to go here because he's got a discovered check from his bishop, so we don't want to go there. I think that's a safest move. He could go here, but then his queen, nah. So I think safest bet is going here for now. His knight can always come back around again to attack the queen, but we'll go here for now. And that's exactly the point that I was talking about. The opponent does not have to do what you have calculated, and you've then got to reassess what you're trying to do. So now he's caught the pawn, so this is another version of that, and now his queen can't go here, but his bishop can take the knight. Yeah. So have they won out? Probably so. There may be +1 after all of that, but if his bishop takes, he's got to be careful of this. So we'll wait to see what the opponent does in this situation. If he goes there, the queen takes his queen, so he does lose tempo, but maybe here would be better for them because then he's actually on the knight. Yeah, because on the knight is also facing our king area, which we don't really want to be happening. So we could turn the knight around and attack the queen here, so then it's not being attacked. But he's gone further down, so he's gone in that area, still attacking the knight. Yeah, so queen's got a nice position here, but we can't get it just yet. Bishop's got a nice diagonal, but there's nothing doing there. See, I'm looking for the attack positions first. Obviously the rook's got the check thing, but I think I'm going to sit and wait on that one. because of this situation. Smaller piece attacking a higher piece, but the pawn is going here. So we could go with the knight movement still, because it's blocking the queen. This queen then has got the horizontal going onto our bishop. Okay, so let's make that move, because he had the 2-on-1 with his bishop and his queen. We've blocked the queen. It's got diagonal onto our rook, so in essence he could go there, but we've got the rook protecting, we've got the queen protecting, and he's got this awesome knight that's, oh, he's gone for the rook thing. Okay, so let's just capture. We could go for a queen exchange, yeah, well, an attempt at a queen exchange, but if we went here with that, his queen would just take our bishop here with a check on our king. So we have to be mindful of that situation. So let's go here. So kind of owning the file, but realistically he can always look for an exchange because his king is supporting this area at the top. So we're trying to utilize our own bits. We're feeling some sort of pressure on these areas as best possible. And his bishop's taken the golden pawn. But I believe in my heart of hearts that that was a mistake. But it's about proving that that was a mistake. If my bishop takes this pawn, yeah, I'm on his knight, so I can take his knight if he leaves his knight there. Yeah, with a check on his king. And you know what? I was meant to do an arrow to the pawn, not actually capture it just yet because I wanted to talk it through, and I've just realised that I've taken it. So, alright then, no problem though, no problem, because I was going to do that anyway. So yeah, so we've captured. If the king does capture, then obviously it takes itself off of the check if I take the knight. He doesn't have to capture, that's the thing, he doesn't have to do anything that I'm calculating. And always be mindful of that, and then think of, well, okay, if they don't do anything, what can we do next? But don't go too far with your calculation. Like, he's moved his knight now, so that wasn't in our calculation. Okay, so he's attacking our queen, so basically his king is going to have time to actually capture the bishop or not, because our queen can just move to here, defending the bishop, also attacking the knight. That's what we believe. So I think we'll move the queen here, just protecting the bishop for now, attacking the knight. Can't take the knight because the queen is protecting that area. So what is my opponent is right in front of our king area, so there's a real worry that he's going to get some sort of jostling position going on. Our bishop is controlling this key square that maybe they wanted their rook to come to. So I think the rook is now going to try and own this file to try and come down and do something. Yeah, to get into the game. So the queen now is feeling, I don't want to be babysitting this knight, sorry. So the knight maybe is going to go back here to feel a bit safe, so that then it can get back into the action. White square bishop is saying, well, I've come down this far, but I don't really want to be there, so it might come here to attack the rook, yeah, to give itself a little bit of strength. So that would be a little bit irking, but our rook is looking to come here, and the reason being, obviously, it's got the check on the queen. Oh, and he's gone for it. Oh, moved again. I meant to do the arrows. I need to stop that. So so the rook is now facing the queen with the protection from our pawn. This bishop attack can't do anything now, so it's blocked its own queen really. It's not really a big force, but we have got this double attack on the knight now. So the queen has to move somewhere more appropriate. It's not going to sacrifice itself. It's not going to go there. It can go here. There we go. And that's not an exchange per se, but it's putting pressure. Is he going for our king? Got to be careful. Going to take with the rook. Oh, do you know what's going to happen? going to take the bishop. Yeah. So he's going to take the bishop after we've taken the knight. Yeah, and then our queen, I think we can take that off the board, and then it's equal. Ah, that's annoying, isn't it? So we don't win the tempo. Thought we had. Ooh. Oh, I thought that could have gone there, but no, his bishop's there. So, don't really want him getting that back. What have we got? 1, 2, and he's got 1, 2. So it would be an even exchange. Nothing major. Is there something better? Attack. The principle of this thing is attack. So we take, and then he takes, and then we take, and then his king takes. So his king is exposed. And knight comes to put a check on the king. Maybe the king comes down for the knight. If the king comes down for the knight, then we win his bishop because we would come and fork here. Okay, something like that. But as we've already shown, the opponent does not have to do what we've calculated. They'll have their own plan, and I might not see what their plan is until it's too late. And also you have to remember what you've calculated if they are following the line that you actually said in the first place. Okay, so the idea was then his queen takes. That takes, king takes, knight here, maybe the king comes down, we get the fork then. Yeah, that's in the ideal world. Yeah, that's the perfect picture. So they're putting some thought into it, doing their own calculations, and it does capture. So we said we were going to capture. Does anything change? No, let's just go with that, and then bring the knight up, but putting the check on. Does the king come and attack the knight? If he does, we've got the gold and we've won the bishop. Oh, he calculated. Damn. Okay, right, let's attack the bishop then. Damn. Oh, so that's the annoying bit, you know, you want to get that gold, but like I say, your opponent is calculating too. So how do we work this now? We're actually +2 at the moment, but that means nothing if we can't convert it. We need to find good positions based on attacking. We've got to just keep on attacking. So he's moved his bishop out of the way, but his rook, our rook has got a discover check on it. Could we do something? Is there anything? The knight can't put a check on the king, or else we get away with that. Could bring the knight here, looking to develop towards attacking these pawns at the same time as having this discovered check. His bishop's probably going to come here to attack the pawn here, so he's in attack mode. He's not gone for the attack mode, and the discovered check that we said on the bishop seems to have panned out. Okay, so that seems to be working. If you can see my thought process, I'm talking it through with you. There's no mastery to it. There's just a matter of attacking and looking at situations that allow you to attack your opponent's pieces and get them off the board. That's favourable for you. So there's no mystical mystery type thing to it. Just keep attacking, keep practicing what the moves of the pieces can do, that can help you to get good positions on the board. every move that you make, try and make it either a move that blocks the opponent's attacks or a move that enhances your attacking potential. So currently we're +5 at the moment based on this strategy that we're using for this particular series, the Christmas Seasonal 2020 series. And the strategy is capture pieces, remove them off the board, get that good position, and just keep capturing all the way through the game, so that you reduce down the amount of pieces that the opponent has to attack you with, basically. Keeping it as simple as that. So he's moved to the far side now, so he can come and attack our king. And our knight can act as a blocker here if we want to keep it simple. But is there a fork of anything? Was potentially half a fork, but then it's like still giving him the rook coming down here, then he'll get these pawns. So I think playing safe, defense, just blocking off with the knight seems appropriate. I think he's probably just going to come and simply try and take these pawns off this pawn off here. So it's at this stage now where you have to really be careful, because you're the one with the advantage. And it's so easy to lose that advantage because you've got more pieces on the board, so you have more pieces to think about in terms of what can I attack, what do I need to defend. When you're in this sort of situation, 9 times out of 10 the lower rated players will go, right, I'm gonna go all in for a checkmate now, yeah, and that's when they lose their pieces, they lose their position, and they make the opponent look good. So this is where I'm going to attempt to try and not make the opponent look good, and try and find good positions. Oh my word, exact position. Okay, so in my head I had my rook coming here just to simply protect and not do anything too extrovert, yeah, because if the knight comes here looking to protect it, he still does have this rook coming here, and then as I've just showed here, then his rook comes up again. So there, attacking these pawns and gets rid of them, so there's no point in going into that situation, and I think I'll just bring the rook across here. So now I'm in the mode of aggressive defending. Now I'm not looking for any checkmate positions unless of course the opponent gives it to me on a plate. So I'm aggressively looking to defend as best possible, whilst my opponent is going to be looking to try and get a win out of the situation. The knight does have this, but it's not good enough, I don't think, because I really want the rook, but he's not going to give it to me. I want the fork. So we could look to support this pawn with a pawn. Yeah, he could always drop his pawn here to block that off, but for the spirit of the game, yeah, let's push this pawn up so that we're supporting this with this, if we can. Probably just bring this pawn down here. So as you can see, we're aggressively defending, attempting to aggressively defend, so that we can mobilize our pieces. We don't really want a rook babysitting the pawn, so we're attempting to get a pawn supporting the pawn. The Scud missile thing that we mentioned in the earlier part of the series, yep, at this moment in time I don't need to worry too much about this now, until such time as he's probably going to bring his rook and support maybe this pawn going down, but because we have this pawn here, the pawn will disappear. So I think he'll attempt to link these pawns up and try and mosey him down, but because we've got 2 pawns facing them, it's not too much of an issue. The big issue is we've got a pawn majority on this side here, so we can start moving those up towards the king area, well, towards getting promotion, but we're not going to do that just yet. We're still looking at some magical forks, but he's not giving it to us at this moment. So what's he trying to do with this rook? Yeah, so he's moved the rook back. If he does come across here, there's no real space. If he comes here, there's no space to attack our king. So I'm going to continue with the pawn push up. If he comes down for the pawn, then we can just push our pawn here to support, and we're further advancing our pawns up without too much strain on our pieces. Yeah, so he's gone the other way attacking the pawn, so either way he's attacking the pawn. So we're going to push the pawn here. So time's running down, but we're on 4 minutes and they're on 5 minutes. It's a 10 second increment, sorry. So it's 15 minute, 10-second game. So it has given us enough time to think about what we're doing. And yeah, so now he's looking to try and destroy the pawn structure. We can move our rook across. Yeah, just move it across here. So then if he does take, then we can take back with our pawn and we're pressuring that area. And I think that's the more sensible thing to do. Yeah. So simply just aggressively defending again all the way through this part of the game now, because I have more material on the board. Our opponent is looking for ways to break through, and they will do if we think we're going to win by going for a checkmate position on their king. So that's lovely. So he's brought his pawn down now, so that has no more activity in the game. This pawn has no more activity in the game. So we need to find an appropriate position now for our pieces. I could bring the rook here now onto this file. Yes, I think that should be okay. Could come here. Yeah, we've got options and choices. So either way we want to just maybe get to the back here so that we're pressuring this pawn. So let's go to this side here. Always our knight is looking for this fork. Yeah, it can go there any stage, but there's no point just yet. Our rook is looking to come here, and then this rook potentially is babysitting this pawn, which is that's not what it's designed for. So at that stage then our king can start moving up, the knight can put the fork on here potentially. Yeah, can come this way, can come round to that side, can go all over the place. So fingers crossed, it's looking pretty favourable. It's based on the so now he's moving his king down, looking to try and get rid of these pawns maybe, and he's taking his king off of the fork process as well for now. So I'm going to bring the rook up because we're onto 2 pawns, so which one can he save now? So he can't save both of them, so potentially I think because he wants to keep his pawns linked, he may as well push this pawn down. But really these pawns aren't strong enough, so he's not actually done that. So we can take this pawn now with a check on the king. So he saved this saved this pawn because he doesn't want us maybe to get a pass pawn, but now we've got a pass pawn here. And the key danger was these linked pawns. And now because they've sort of split, I don't think there's going to be too much for us to worry about in terms of any further development along this side. So we got to still be careful. Don't want to come down there because that just wastes time. Just bring this back centrally here. It's nothing worse than rushing it now that you've got to this position here and then you make a mistake. Why am I doing these moves? I still want to keep pressure on this pawn so that then his rook is just not in the game at all. And then we can look to fashion maybe knight movements at some point to try and get this pawn here. This pawn is pushing down and it's really got nowhere to go. But you still have to be careful. Knight can come here, or can go there to come here to attack this pawn. Yeah, so we're going to go with that motion to double up on this pawn here. You have to be careful sometimes when you free up a piece that you think, yeah, okay, this rook is being forced to protect this pawn, but then once it's released it might be a crazy rook. So he's actually attacking, so we can put the fork on the king, so the king has to move. But you know what? The king is going to attack our rook. And this is the sort of situation that we have to be mindful of. But when it does attack, we can take the pawn here. And if the king takes our knight, our rook takes the rook. So we capture the pawn here, nothing to worry about there. Initially, look tight. But positionally, because we've already got it set in place, it makes it a little bit easier for us to go for, and it's not going for the exchange. So the knight itself does have a fork on the king. Well, does it not? No, it can move. So what do we want to do? The king could come here, and his rook is going to come down for the knight, so we need to position it so that it can't do much damage. So this is the key point. This is what I was saying. You can release the piece that you think you had held to ransom, which was the rook, and now it turned into a little bit of a beast, you know, coming in there. It's attacking, trying to attack the key squares, so you have to be very careful still. So it's attacking the knight, so just bring the pawn here, defending the knight. I'm not going to move the knight anywhere now because we don't want the rook having the space to come down to attack our king. And the knight has done this before earlier on in the game, blocking the knight, blocking the rook's activity on the file. It's always a good handy tactic to use, using the knight to block the rook's activity, because that's their strength on the open files. So now, as you can see, we're looking to attempt to get the passed pawns promoted, but we're not going to rush it. We're going to take our time and try and get the better positions, keep ourselves safe. So he's going for a 2-on-1 potentially. Is he going to sacrifice? If we bring our rook here, yeah, then his king can come here. Yeah. So if his king comes there, you know, thinking he's attacking the rook, then the pawn can push up, protected by the rook. But then the king can take, and where does the pawn go? So that would be no good, because the pawn would take there, but then the queen would take, and we would have a knight and the king type situation. So don't really want to go down those roads, because we still have the knight. It just takes a little bit longer to make those moves. So we could just simply push this pawn, because it is a passed pawn. So if his rook does take our knight, our pawn takes. These pawns are getting promoted, no problems. So now you can envisage that the rook is probably going to come here to again block off a pawn that it doesn't really want to do. Oh, I see. Yeah, so he wants to maybe get his king into this little square here to stop my king from getting to here. But then what can the rook do? The rook can't really come down here because the king will take it. So there's still pressure that he can potentially put. Going to push the pawn. Passed pawns want to be pushed. And if his rook blocks there, we can always just attack the rook, and then we get a queen. So understanding the movements of the pawns and the rhythm of the rook, being able to get the queen, put pressure onto the rook. Still looking at what he can potentially do in terms of attacking me, but his rook can't come down to attack here. My king would need to be here for that to be devastating, because his king would be there, then his rook would come down, and that would be checkmate. But because our king is on this square, there's no dice, because it's chess. Sorry, that was a bad one. Okay, so we're on 2 minutes and they've resigned. Okay, let's have a look at the analysis on that game, just to see the ups and downs in terms of our thinking versus a computer. So we opened, attacked the pawn again, and attacked the pawn again, captured. And then we attacked the bishop, and this strange move here, we captured the knight, captured the pawn, and maneuvered the queen to safety. Then looking to attack the pawn at the side of the queen, developing the knight, looking to develop the knight through and support the bishop, attacking the bishop. queenside castle, a smaller piece attacking a higher piece. Again, see these little attacks building up, taking the bishop, moving the queen out of the way, and basically capturing with a discover check onto the queen. And this part here was getting a little bit tricky, but bringing through the discover check onto the queen from the rook is quite handy. Capturing and attacks with discovered checks, and again just simply moving and attacking, and lovely double attack here, capturing and capturing, and now looking at better position on the board, developing the pieces. I think we're 2 plus 2 is it here at this moment in time? 1 2 3 4 5 6 1 2 3 4, yep, +2. Discover check onto a piece, very key, a key process for anybody playing chess, especially beginners, understanding the movements of the game in terms of placing your pieces where you potentially can attack a piece or capture a piece so that you're safe. And from this point on, we were aggressively defending. Yep. So at each stage, aggressively defending, but also counter-attacking, because as you can see, our pawns are getting further advanced up the board. We're thinking of defending this pawn on the F, sorry. But as we're doing that, we're being aggressive in moving forward. So again, simple movements, understanding the rhythm of the game, bringing the rook across to stop the pawn from actually winning our pawn and the rook winning our extra pawn. So now our rook can freely attack their pawn, and we hold their pawn to ransom because the rook is now having to babysit. So that gives us a chance to put a check on the king, develop the knight through, looking to take this pawn off on the F. At this moment here, had a little bit of a panic, but then realised no, the rook can just simply take, and he doesn't exchange, so that gives us time to bring our knight down, and again aggressively defending. And now we can move forward with the pawn, and at that stage there we would have been looking to get a promotion, and the opponent resigned. So a nice long game there for the seasonal period, and this will be the last game in the series. And the key points, as always, capture pieces, remove pieces from the board strategically, because when your opponent has no army, there can be no war. Appropriate positioning, keeping it nice and simple as in the beginning stages of playing chess, not looking at anything arty, not looking at any fancy openings. So our opponents just push past the pawn, so again we can just simply grab this pawn. I don't know what reason was given for that particular pawn push there. It allows us to be +1, but it allows them to develop their knight ahead of our minor pieces, I suppose. So we're going to develop our knight. There's nothing to immediately attack. And again, nothing immediately to attack really, so king safety is the key thing for us, so we may as well develop the bishop so we can go on castle. Now he's pushing through the centre because we don't have anything to block his way apart from this pawn here. But if we push this pawn up, got to be careful, if we push this pawn up, he does have his knight and his queen and the pawn on there, so we would lose the pawn. We are +1 anyway, but what we don't want is this pawn scud missiling down onto our knight. So in essence we could give the pawn back. He could still push past and still scud missile the knight. We just maneuver our knight to somewhere else. So they do capture, so they've got the pawn back. So I'm going to grab. Now that was a mistake. Why was it a mistake? Because our queen can't take the knight back, because his queen is supporting. So we could have just left the pawn in the center of the board rather than taking. This is the type of stuff that I see quite often in lower rated players' games. So how do we then make that a stronger position for us? Well, it's a matter of now trying to find a better position. So I'm going to press onto the knight. The knight moves, then we take the queen off the board, so we get a big gun off the board. And then we have to reposition our pieces to get a better position on the board. So he's actually given us the knight back. So we might as well, we can actually take the queen, get the big guns off because it's got a check on his king, but he's actually given us that piece back. We can't castle, he can't castle because we've moved our king. Simple pawn push up to the bishop here. So that was almost like a free gift. So then putting pressure onto the king while we readjust our own king. We can develop out our bishop now, basically maybe attacking. That's the principle of this series. So attacking the knight, looking to maybe develop our other knight to get it off the back, so we're supporting our rooks. So it does attack, so we can double the pawns up here, so he'll capture with the pawn. Could develop our knight that way or this way, but his bishop will take, so we may as well come this way. So now at least our rooks are linked up. At this stage here we can push onto the bishop because we've got the support of the pawn. And again, what the opponent did by gifting the knight back, that type of stuff I have also seen quite a lot of in lower rated games. We do have the option, we can go here with the attempt at attacking this pawn, but I believe his bishop will take, and then the pawn takes here, and then his rook would take our pawn, so that's not going to work from the outset. So developing the knight, I believe, is something to open up our rook and get the other rook behind it as simple as possible, trying to own this file. But I believe maybe the rook is going to come across. No, it's not, he's actually challenging the pawn. So for now we could allow him to take that pawn because his rook isn't actually on it at the moment. So we could continue with looking to double our pawns. We do have the knight here which can go and attack this pawn. Bishop takes, the rook takes, then we're owning that file. Could push this pawn up to doubly defend the pawn. I'm actually going to, there is an issue with that because he does have the bishops. Because if we moved here, his bishop comes and attacks us on this diagonal. If we move there, the bishop takes. If we move here, the bishop comes and attacks the rook there. If we go here, the bishop, white square bishop, can't come and attack. So let's go there. I think they'll continue with the pawn taking, so we can take back, and then they move their white square bishop, potentially to come and attack our rook here. So then our rook would have to come down to face off the bishop, but then his rook takes the pawn and we can't take the bishop. Another rookie error. But he's not taken that opportunity yet. He's winning a tempo by attacking our knight, so our knight needs to readjust, but readjusting probably to a nice position to protect the pawn. Bishop's probably still looking to come here, but we don't need to panic so much now. Oh, the bishop is actually attacking the knight. King can protect. Could still look to double, or if he does take, we've got time. If he does take the knight and then the king takes, the bishop can't really come here because the king can take, but then his rook can come down, put a check on. So I don't think we lose out in sense of this pawn. We could push this pawn just to make sure. Let's just push this pawn anyway, just to back this pawn up. He does capture. His king is currently opposite our king, so nothing to worry about there with the rooks so far. But there's something missing here, and there's a tempo that we have lost because we're now a minor piece down. So yet again, a rookie error has been made. A beginner error has been made. Our tempo has been done wrong again. So how do we regroup again from this position? So we do have discovered checks on his king, but his rook is looking to come here to put a check on our king, and then making its way down to attack our pawns on the back. So I'm going to move my king off of the line. He's also defending his king because our rook potentially was coming here to put a check on. So he's moved his king further down. I'm going to follow the ownership of this file because I don't think there's any point actually coming here because his rook is ready to go here. So we've had to regroup. This is the third time I think in this particular game with errors being made right from the start. But as a beginner in chess, these are the types of things that it's good to actually start practicing. We did mention that the bishop could potentially attack here, so we're going to attack the king because we've got the doubled rooks at the minute. Could take this pawn here. There's a discovered check from his bishop, so his rook could actually just take this pawn because his bishop is on our rook. Our rook could come down and just put a check on the king here. So this rook is doing quite a nice job of blocking off the attacks that we can put in place. We could look to actually push forward. If the rook takes, then our rook can come up here, put a check on the king. King comes down to safety a little bit here. That might not be as good as we're thinking. So what do we do? If we go here, his rook takes this pawn because he's got the bishop check. Bring the rook down with a check on his king. His king can go either way, can go up or down, probably go back maybe. Yes, so let's think this through. The king can attack the bishop. That's a nice small move. Let's do that. Make the king aggressive. Let's see what this bishop wants to do. Could come down and attack. Both of our rooks are on white squares. So he's brought, also his rook can come down, so if we take, but we've got a check on his king, so he has to do something about it, which is probably bishop taking. Yep, so the bishop takes and he's got a discover check on our rook if his king moves. Yeah, so the bishop takes. Then his rook has got an avenue down here towards our king. So are we going to have to do another small move, which is just bring the king here, but then he takes the pawn. Is there anything else? If we move the king here, he could take the pawn, but then we would take his bishop. But then his pawn is passed because he can push past. Interesting situation. Things to think about. If we take, king can take, supporting the bishop even, but I don't think so because our rook would take the pawn. So the bishop takes, the bishop's here. If our king moves up, so that we've got a line of sight for the king, but then our rook is attacked. Small details. I don't really want to take the pawn. I really want to put my king here, but then he gets the tempo by just taking here. We take back. This rook's not necessarily going to take just yet. You'll have to wait for the bishop to come here, then we can push the pawn past a little bit. I'm going to move the king, aggressive king. Try and make some space in front of his king, although I need to move this rook obviously to one side or the other, because his king is waiting to take that, so that we can potentially start putting some pressure on the king, because the king is in the center of the board. I know ours is. Oh, he's actually gone for this attack. Yeah, so he wants us to move off of the line, so well, let's attack this bishop, get it on a dark square, and like we say, can't really maneuver this rook until this rook has found safe haven, maybe to here, or can come back either way. It depends on what they do next. So playing longer games really does give you that time to think about moves. Yep. And like I'm saying, for this particular series, yes, you're going to make mistakes. I'm glad these mistakes have been made in this particular game, just to show that we're trying to fight back. And that's really how you improve your game, by actually playing games that really do test your mettle, because then you make better moves next time. So he's going to have a 2-on-1, yeah, with his rook on the pawn. Well, 3-on-1 rather, yeah. So then his pawn can freely take. So we're going to have to move our king back, or we can move it here. We've got two spaces that we can move it to, but I'd rather move it here for now, because then if he takes, then takes back here, rooks takes, but it's not actually attacking our king. Whereas if we went onto this file here, he could actually just do a rook check type situation. Bearing in mind he still has his bishop here, which is under attack. So any type of combination of stuff, he's going to have to think about moving his bishop as well. I've got to be mindful, my rook is under attack from their king. That's an interesting move. Has he not given us it back? But we may have fallen into a trap. So we're not going to get giddy with this, because pawn takes, rook takes. So initially now, we're basically +1, as it's showing on the table here. So was that a panic move, or is it a set play thing? So I'm glad these things are happening in this game. We're both making errors and mistakes in this game, and that's how you improve in chess. There's no other way around it. You could play chess by yourself for as many years as you want, but you have to play other people. And playing online, yes, there's a variety of levels that you can play against. Fingers crossed, hopefully. I think they've left the game. Yeah, it's showing they've left the game here. Oh, it might be because they brought the bishop there. I really don't know why that bishop was put there, but same point in question. I don't know why I did certain moves in what I did, but the idea behind it is you'll always feel like that. You'll always feel like that playing chess. You'll have your good days where you're actually wiping everybody off the board, you know, and you'll go away going, yes, that's fantastic, it's all coming together. And then you'll have other days where you can't win a game, you know, and so then you go back to the drawing board and you're basically looking at how it is that happened, look at the evaluation, and then you'll say to yourself, I can't believe I made that move. Why did I make that move? That's always the key question in any chess game. You ask any chess player, why did I make that move? So it looks like the player, it's got 10 seconds left now, so it looks like they are actually leaving the game. And that's one of the key things I'm trying to get across as well, is that when you're playing online, we will claim victory on this. So in keeping with our one strategy, capture. If there's no captures, get your pieces positioned so that you can get your king to safety. That's it. It's a simple strategy. Looks like we've got a slow plodder a thinker. It's a 15-minute, 10-second game, so you can expect longer times for people making moves. But some do actually take it to the nth degree, which is quite annoying, where they probably don't make a move and they don't make a move, and then it gets down to 3 minutes and they haven't made a move, you know. So there's taking it too far. So the knight now attacking the queen. Let me see where he wants to go. Does he want to exchange the queen off, or is he going to go to this secret hideout here over in this corner? Does he put a check on? Goes into the secret hideout. Just develop the knight in readiness to get my king safe. There's two schools of thought. Do you develop the bishop next, or do you push this pawn through the centre? In the elements of keeping your king safe, you develop your wide square bishop, you know, to give space as a beginner. And when I'm saying as a beginner, yeah, I'm saying absolute beginner who's just started, but it also bodes well for anybody really playing chess, these sort of concepts, because I'm going to show a game playing against like what I class as a high level player, 1800 area, using these same principles. So it really doesn't matter who you're playing against, as long as you're using the right methodology. I'm going to give my dark square bishop some air. So don't believe this knight can trouble our castling process at the moment, so this is why I'm giving both of my bishops some air. If their bishop had come and attacked our knight, I potentially would have brought my bishop here in readiness for castling, but they haven't done so. Okay, so we could attack the knight. In keeping with this system, I'm going to attack the knight. Now the bishops come here. Don't really mind doubling the pawns up so much, but the queen is there to protect anyway. And in keeping with our system, I'm going to capture the knight. So I'm trying to work with the theory that the less pieces that the opponent has on the board, the less pieces I have on the board as well. Yeah, the less strategies that they can throw at you. There's less pieces that they can pull together to actually attack you and get a checkmate on you. It's a simple concept, but it does seem to work when done correctly. Then we go for this basic thing here, which is what they're expecting. The bishop putting the discover check through to the queen. Queen then hides into this corner here, putting pressure onto the b pawn. Yep. So then when you push, then the queen comes down here, attacking the knight, maybe. Yep. I don't really want to do that. I want to just go on castle, and I am going to go on castle. We'll leave the queen there for now while we try and jostle better position with our pieces, if we've got any left. So it's got one, and where is it? Opposite the queen. So we've got to be mindful of rooks being opposite the queen, because activity can take place. Yeah, such as the pawn pushing down here onto this pawn. This pawn would not be able to take, because the rook would take the queen. So he does capture. So now we're actually onto this pawn with a check on his king, so he has to be mindful of that. It's moved down dead quick with the rook. It is a 15-minute, 10-second game, so is there a set play? Because our queen still has this pawn, there's nothing protecting here, and we do have a check on his king. I suppose his knight can go back to protect, but we will have grabbed a pawn. Is he then looking to run across here and then run across there? But can we not just simply push the pawn up here? Let's grab with a check. So capturing with a check on the king. and the rook has come back. Could challenge that rook. I've got to remember to keep pressing the arrow button. I was just about to press the drag across then. So we could bring our rook across here, and that's then challenging the rook, because we've got a pin through on the rook through to the king. Does he have a blocker? The blocker could be the knight coming here. And we could take the knight. If his queen takes, then the rook would take the queen. So seems doable. Let's just bring the rook across. And I'm only using the arrows because of the series that we're working on. These are not assistive tools in my eyes. These are like trying to show the sort of thought process, as well as me talking about the process. Some people are visual, so they like to see what you're actually talking about rather than, you know, verbalizing it. In my normal games I don't use the arrows, but for instructional purposes, tutorial purposes, I believe it's quite a nice touch. So he's going for the queen exchange, so we can't really take the rook because the knight is there. The knight will take. I don't think there's any other immediate checks per se. Yeah, so it's sort of equalized away in a sense. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else, because like the queen can come here, can't it? Don't do it, let's just do the arrows. Queen can go here with a check on the king, so then the rook has to come back, and then we will be able to go checkmate with the queen. So I'm going to do that. It's a good job we stopped and paused to think about that, because the king can't go anywhere and the queen can come back to protect, but we still have that position. So then the queen just comes across here and checkmates. Yep. Okay. Well, that's a nice set of two games there. Shall we play another one just to finalise the process? Let's go for it. We can try and put some effort in here. The knight is attacking the pawn. Nice defending. Let's attack the pawn again. We've got a thinker. Okay, that's good. It captures, so the knight captures the pawn, keeping it simple. Doesn't capture, so we do have a position where we can capture, and I'm going to capture this pawn because the queen can still defend the knight, and I don't mind doubling my pawns up and not allowing my king to castle in this situation. But maybe because of this series that we're doing, maybe I should refrain from doing what I was going to do. So I'm going to bring the bishop here, which is defending the knight. So I want to go and castle, get king safety, but at the same time, so he does actually capture, so let's capture. And they're taking the time with the capture, so are they not wanting to capture now when they're thinking of something else? Moving the queen away. Does capture, so we capture back. Okay, so in keeping with the series, that worked out quite nicely for us. Simple captures. King safety is key for us, but we're not under threat at the minute until the dark square bishop potentially comes here, but it's easily defended by pushing the pawn up to protect. So he's going queenside castling, it looks like. Move the white square bishop, could move it to here. If he is going to queenside castle, we'll be able to take this pawn. So again, attacking a piece that potentially we could grab. And as you can see throughout all of these, I am not using any fancy tools, any fancy methods or strategies or anything like that. We're trying to keep it as simple as possible, and it seems to be working for us. Even from the first game where we made errors and blunders, it's about regrouping and hoping that your opponent then, well, don't like to say hope, but hey, you know, the game of chess is a hope thing. I know some people go, you shouldn't say it's hope chess, you're playing with tactics and strategies. Yeah, but you're hoping that the opponent doesn't do a certain move. You're hoping that the person follows the calculation that you've made. You're hoping, yeah, that you can get that pawn that you're targeting. You're hoping all the time. So when people say, oh, you're playing hope chess, well, yeah, I am. Yeah, because I'm hoping that I come out in an advantageous position. Because there's no guarantees, no matter how good you are. I've looked at many games. He actually has gone queenside castling, but you know what? He thinks he's clever. I don't know if this bishop can do any damage. No. Right, that's fine. So we can actually still grab the pawn, because his rook is still facing our bishop, which has no protection on. So yeah, he has moved, but he's blocked us. It's blocked us from castling, but that's about it. So it's nothing to worry about there. So we can just push the pawn here to protect the bishop. So we were aware of what potentially could happen. I just thought, well, the bishop can't actually attack anything dangerous. If it could put a check on our king, then he would have won the bishop, if we didn't have anything to put in front of it. But that wasn't the case. And I think, for me, oh dear, demonstrate. This bishop now is obviously going to pin the rook through to the king, so we've won the rook, because the rook can't move because the king is there. Oh dear. I was just about to say, out of the games that you've played and the games that I've studied, and I've studied the grandmasters, you know, the old grandmaster levels, we simply can take here. I might as well, but it's a higher piece. Could have taken the knight, but I thought I'll just save that. And we can go and, no, we can't castle. Let's go here. Then we can attack the bishop with the pawn. Yeah. So let me finish my sentence again. Oh, it's always come to block off any attempts at all. So I'm going to castle by hand, and I don't have a problem with that at all, because they've worked so hard to prevent me from castling, that this will be quite nice just to be able to sit my king on this little dark square here. He does have a dark square bishop, which could potentially put pressure on us. And again, as always, he's actually taking, so we'll attempting to capture. And he's moving really fast now, so just move the king, because he was moving that fast because he wanted his rook to be putting a check on our king. So we can now put a check on his rook. I still haven't finished that sentence. I've got plenty of time now. I've gone higher than what we started with. So the elite players, the masters, the grandmaster level players, the old style players, yeah, when they've played their games, and every time basically they're hoping, yeah, you watch their games and you look at the way that they're moving the pieces all the way through the Kasparovs, the Carlsons, everybody, yeah, you know, they're hoping that people don't make these moves. They're hoping that people give them a little bit of a break, you know. Oh dear. Take that. Just bring the rook here. So in essence, when we're making our moves, you don't know what the opponent's going to do. So you're hoping that they make a move that puts you in a good light. So when you hear people saying, "Oh, you're playing hope chess," so what? Yep. So are you. When you're talking about your strategies, you're hoping that that person does move that way, or else your strategy won't work. Let's go here, attack this pawn. There's a belief that, well, no, if you're playing hope chess, then you're not going to stand a chance. Yeah, the hope in my eyes comes from the fact that, yes, hopefully I've done some type of half decent calculation that covers off my attack process and then tries to block off my opponent's process. And throughout the beginning series that we've been running on, you've noticed that every time, well, most of the time when I've done my calculations, the opponent hasn't done what I've calculated. They may have done it in a roundabout way, but they've not done it in the move order that I have predicted. Yep. So that's me hoping that they go for it. When I'm doing a calculation, that's me hoping that they go for this. I've seen that so many times in international master games, grandmaster games, online on YouTube. Yeah, they're hoping that people do make these errors or mistakes, and when they don't, then that's when they get shocked. And then everybody goes, whoa, 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 that person's not playing true type thing. In some cases that is the case, but in other cases more so the case that they haven't done their calculations properly and they've moved too fast. And even they will say afterwards, oh, I could have taken it this way, I got a little bit too arty. Yeah, I could have simply taken the knight off the board, or I simply could have taken the bishop off the board. Those, when you hear those sort of comments, you know full well their calculation was too based on hope. This person, thought they'd left the game there. So he's attacking this pawn here. Took a long pause there. It's attacking the pawn, so are we going to allow them to do that? We can't stop them. And so let them peel off a few pawns, I suppose, then. 1, 2, maybe knight coming here. You have to be careful with these positions. Just because I've got a rook doesn't mean I've won the game. He's got a bishop, he does have a knight, a flexible knight, so he can still do stuff. And I have a knight too, so if I can get my knight mobilized, maybe put pressure on this wide square bishop, maybe even just start pushing these pawns up. So he's attacking pawns left, right and centre. Let's go here. If he gets to a decent position, attacks here, his bishop will probably take our knight. And it's got a nice little fork on the king. That allows me to move up a little bit, doesn't it? He can take this pawn, but then the knight takes. I'm on 16 minutes. I'm not even utilising that 10-second thing, so maybe if I take a little bit more time, I can find appropriate positions now. It's just at this moment the opponent is doing the cornered cat thing. They're just blasting away, grabbing pawns, trying to get my king. So I need to just do aggressive defensive work. Does capture. What fancy fork has he got? Okay, so he's taken, and he's actually going for the pawn as well. So let's go here. So he could speed these pawns down. That's the issue, so I've gone quiet now. Because I don't think this pawn will get promoted. What's he doing? So he got a fork on my king and my... No, he's got a fork on my king. Let's go here. Pass pawns want to be pushed, so as far up as you can push them, you're best off. But I don't think this one will get promoted, because his king will join into the party. Ooh, nice one. Got to be careful now here. So if I go here, he does have a fork. He can get my rook. Yeah, he can get my rook. Just pin the knight to the king. So the knight can't move now, but we do have an issue about this pawn. So just going to start moving these. His king is going to come here, so he takes himself off the pin. He's not doing that. My rook, my kingdom for a rook. If I move my king, move it again. Smallest of detail, a little Scud missile zooming down, can't really ignore it. My rook isn't going to get trapped, but he can take the pawn, but then I take his knight if his king takes the pawn, so he has to do a bit of jostling, I think. Ooh, nice attack. So if we come here, does he get a fork on my knight, knight, knight? Let's come back again. So we're actually protecting the pawn here. Got to be so careful with this. Can't go there. What's he trying to do? He's going to come onto my king here. Is he? There's no fork on my king and rook. Yeah, so he's gone there. We can go here, can't we? Got plenty of time. He's going to try and get these down, isn't he? Yeah. If I go here, can he get me again? Yeah, he can. Don't really want him getting me anymore. Let's just focus on trying to get a pawn up. He's back again. Right, okay. So we want to play it like that, do we? Okay, let's play it like that then. Come on. You can have the pawn. He doesn't want the pawn. But I don't want to play the backwards and forth. Oh, I thought he had a fork on me then. Whoa, steady on. I said take the pawn. And what do we have? Oh, I was going to take there, but his knight can take, but I suppose I don't really care about that. Because the king will be shielding the pawn going up to get promoted. Nice effort, nice effort. So he's come round now. Let's go here, pinning the rook, knight. So basically we've got the knight now. Woo! Crikey, that was tense. You noticed I went very quiet then. I was concentrating. I'm on 17 minutes. Dear me. And they've resigned. Okay, I think that will be the last one. I think that's a good demonstration of the targeting thing that we're talking about. Capturing where we need to, and just focusing on building that pressure towards the king at some stage, but also really keeping safe, looking at what the opponent can do to you. This player played really quite nicely with their knight, because I'm a knight man and I'm quite impressed with the way they moved. So yeah, you have to be mindful. Just because your piece is up or your material up, it doesn't mean you've won the game. You've still got to use your strategies to basically say, right, okay, how do I keep myself from getting checkmated? How do I keep from losing pieces? And that's the whole lot really, and you'll start to enjoy your games even more.